Entering the Fat Mayo Experience.
Fat Mayo Experience. Fat Mayo Experience. Fat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 17, last card of the year. So we had to have our friend Cody Saftic here in studio to get her all done.
Yeah.
A little bit of a rough showing last week. My boy Jacare.
Which is why I had to also be in studio. That was a piss poor showing on my part. I guess on my part. I think a lot of people had a bad week in general.
Rough night for lots of people in the community, for sure.
And now it's the last card of the year, so obviously I had to be in studio to see you one last time before we round things out, but also to put the game face on, baby, and let's get things going. So on one hand, I'm going to enjoy this bag of beer because it's the last show of the last show. Come on, I'm going to do it. But also,
how many beers have been enjoyed on this desk out of something other than a boot? I would say basically none.
Yeah, I would say I should do a shoey for last week, but I'm not going to because
I should probably do one for the Jacare love.
It is what it is. You can't predict things like that. I mean, in the Jacare fight, you can predict that Kevin Holland's going to win the fight, but do you predict that Kevin Holland's going to get taken down by world-class BJJ black belt Jacare and then KO him Nico Price style? Like, maybe
Knock
that's
him
not
out
exactly.
from bottom.
Yeah, that's not exactly something that
I was feeling so good about it, and then it was just like, wait a second, he's hanging. Like, props to Kevin Holland, he was really hanging in there. He wasn't accepting any sort of position. Just, I guess, a bad read. One guy at the end of the road, one guy at the top of his. He's getting into the best part of his career right now in Kevin Holland. So onwards and upwards for him. And
of course. But them's the breaks, right? Daniel Pineda.
I'm sure Scott Coker's probably calling Jacare right about now.
So that's something that we're going to talk about on this card as well, is that you got a lot of these aging legends, the Junior Dos Santos of the world, the Jacare Souzas of the world, I can't call them a legend, but the OSPs of the world, and they all need a place to go. They're going to be part of these 60 cuts. The UFC's matching them up with odd-looking opponents. Like, why is a guy with relatively no steam, or why is a guy that just got a middling record taking on this aged veteran? It's like do or die. Shogun loses to Paul Craig. It's die. He's going to be on that list, and like there's a lot of them. So bar in mind, like the UFC knows what they're doing. They're giving them a chance to show that they still got something. But to this point, like very few of them have really been stepping up to the plate. Club Swanson, he's only 37, I suppose. He's basically 59 if you factor in all the wear and tear he's had on him. But yeah, he's relatively young.
Except for like Glover Teixeira. That guy just won't die.
See, Glover wins fights. You don't cut a guy like Glover. Glover could go over to Bellator and conceivably be, a title challenger. You want these guys to be completely washed that by the time they go there, they probably lose a fight or they don't do the Josh Koscheck's. Remember him? The UFC cuts him. It's high profile. Bellator signs him. He does nothing. He comes in, drops one fight, and retires. It's just like he was at the end of the road. He was done. That's what they'd like to get. So, it's definitely pink slip fights for a lot of people, and they're going to be highly motivated. So I'm highly motivated to get back on track. They're highly motivated to keep their jobs intact. So let's get at it, bud.
Let's get at it. We got Jeff Neal taking on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in the main event. We got Jeff Neal, minus 120 favorite. Thompson, plus 100. Thompson actually opened up around like minus 160. At most of the markets, and as over the last couple of weeks, people like themselves some Jeff Neal, who is now obviously the favorite in this spot. I don't know if I agree with the line movement. Watching Stephen Thompson's last time out against Vicente Luque, I think it's a relatively, at least in the stand-up, it's a relatively similar stylistic matchup to what Jeff Neal presents. Jeff Neal is faster, has more power, for sure. But Thompson, threw up like 138 significant strikes in that fight, was able to stay at range, fight the fight that he wanted to have, gets clipped a couple times. There's where the danger is against somebody like Jeff Neal, but over 5 rounds. The big thing here, too, is 5 rounds. I haven't really seen Jeff Neal go that distance. He's been fine in going 3 rounds in some of his fights, so I have to imagine in round 4 he'll be at least okay. Big question mark of him, though, is I think it was August 9th on his Instagram feed. You see that his body went into septic shock.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's been back in the gym. He's been training, but that's got to take a bit out of you. And we're fighting on the top level here. And we were talking about it to open the show. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 37 years old. This is one of the spots like we were talking about. They're giving you a rising up or an upcomer right here versus an old legend. I just think I just think the market's moving in the wrong direction. I actually think the opener was probably more in line with what we should see here. I think Stephen Thompson, unless he gets clipped, and we saw it in the Anthony Pettis fight, that was, he's dominating until he gets absolutely shut down. But in that Luque fight, and that's the last thing we can go off of, he looked pretty good, man. He was, staying at his range, controlling the action, throwing up a lot of strikes as Vicente Luque moved in. Is Jeff Neal gonna use the Tyron Woodley style here and make Wonderboy chase? Because that's where Wonderboy has always struggled. Like, he's great if he's fighting a pressure fighter. Someone's gonna move in on him. But he has definitely struggled when he had to force the action. So I like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Haven't made a bet on it yet. Interested to hear your take.
Yeah, well, there's just a lot of questions on both sides. Obviously, with Jeff Neal, he's coming a year-long layoff. He was battling some health problems. And beyond that, I mean, he hasn't really fought exactly the murderer's row in the UFC to this point. So now he's getting UFC headliner against Stephen Thompson, a very proven commodity and a very tricky fighter. How do you prepare for Stephen Thompson? It's difficult. When you look at Jeff Neal's, ascent, so to speak, his last loss years ago against Kevin Holland, who turned out to be a badass, he gets really tired in that third round, like noticeably gassed out, fatigued. It's like, oh, that's the key to this guy. You got to hang for a couple rounds, bear that power, and then you can beat him as he tires out. But as far as his run in the UFC goes, since then, after that fight, he finished 3 guys in the first round, got the fight in the UFC, head kicks Camacho in the second round. The Bilal Muhammad fight went the distance. We saw him 3 rounds in there. But then it's a lot of finishes. Nico Price is wild, right? Nico Price is the kind of guy that's going to rock in there and try to brawl with you, and you can intercept this guy and knock him flat out, which is exactly what Jeff Neal does. It's a nice win. It's a feather in your cap win.
Nico drops him at one point, too.
And Nico's style is, again, it's brawling, it's hectic, it's back and forth, it's go at you, which is something you're not going to face in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, but a win over Nico Price is nice. To follow it up with the win over Mike Perry was nice at the time. Knocking out Mike Perry with a head kick or, just absolutely battering this guy into next week was a nice win at the time. But as we've seen, Mike Perry is so raw, and he's the same crash forward, brawler type, way less refined than Nico Price, would get killed probably against Nico Price now that you've seen that Tim Means fight and you see where the guy's at. But at the time, at least, it was a nice win. But since then, there's been no build on that momentum. Now, he's only 30 years old. One would imagine that in the last 12 months, he's probably made a ton of improvements. And the guy's got a lot of power. And that's the one thing that Stephen Thompson's going to have to mind the P's and Q's on, is that getting a little bit older and being so elusive, it's like, if you do hit this guy, you can knock this guy. Mm-hmm. And I say that because you see the Tyron Woodley fight the first time around. Drops him hard, has him almost out of there, gets a 10-8 round out of it. The second time around, to a much lesser extent, hits him, hurts him, so to speak. Then you see Stephen Thompson in these other spots, like the Anthony Pettis fight. Like, who would have saw that coming? That little old Anthony Pettis coming up from 155 pounds is going to Superman punch this guy completely into next week. The Darren Till fight. Darren Till dropped him and hurt him. The Vicente Luque fight, to a lesser extent, you see where he gets hurt. Now, I would argue that Jeff Neal's got more power than all those guys, especially T Wood, who I'm not a fan of, as we all know. If Jeff Neal hits you, it's going to do a lot of damage, and 5 rounds is a lot of time to work with. But I agree with your train of thought here, is that we've seen Stephen Thompson in 5 rounds. We know he's not going to fatigue, and we know he's going to be this elusive target, try to stay away from Neal. If Neal doesn't knock him out in the first 2 rounds, is Neal going to get tired? He's been off for a year. He had COVID. He was dealing with his other health problems. Like, are all
he
these
claimed that he almost died from septic shock.
And here's one thing people don't realize.
That wasn't long ago. That was August 9th is when he's posting a picture of him in the hospital. So
if it was like,
I don't know I'm not a doctor. I don't know how fast people get over these things, but still not like when you're getting ready for a 5-round fight at this level, it's a red flag for me.
If you blow your knee out, there's other things you can do. If you tear your labrum, there's other things you can do. If you're on your deathbed with septic shock, there's nothing you can do. You're not going to the gym on Monday and getting in some tough rounds. Like, you rebuild yourself, you rehab yourself, and he's had a year off. So, I don't doubt that we see a good version of him. It's that I'm not 100% sure what we're going to see out of him. Whereas with Stephen Thompson, we've figured it out by this point. Listen, and I'm a big Vicente Luque fan. But I was all over Thompson in that fight. Because why? It's a guy in Luque that likes to brawl, likes to crash forward, and likes to brawl, likes to make it a hectic fight. He intercepts those guys all day long. Mm-hmm. T Wood wouldn't engage him. Neither time would not engage him. So he moved forward on him and got caught. The Anthony Pettis fight, rewatch it. Anthony Pettis is backing up the whole time because he's like, fuck this, Duke. You got that towel ready to get thrown in? And then ends up clocking him with a Superman punch and knocking him out.
Literally jumps off of the cage because he's backing up.
It's his last hurrah, but he's just like, screw it, and smacks him. The Darren Till fight, everybody's booing. It's so low pace. And Darren Till, a natural counterpuncher, is waiting on the shot, smacks him with a straight left. So you're 100% right in your assessment that Jeff Neal lays back and lets Stephen Thompson dictate the action. Maybe he catches him. But because his cardio is not good enough to be like, I'm taking this fucking guy to 3, 4, and 5 and knocking him out, he might try to get it done early. And he might fight the way he fought Nico Price. He might fight the way he fought Mike Perry, which is just crash forward.
Which he could clip him.
He could, definitely. It's a fist fight. It's a fist fight.
Course.
We've seen Stephen Wonderboy Thompson wobbled. We've seen Jeff Neal absolutely ice guys. But again, it's probably closer to a 50-50 fight. They're giving you dog money on dog money. It's plus 100.
It's been moving though, so we'll see where this ends up.
Probably because people have made the same assessment on Jeff Neal about, oh, geez, is dog or pass on this one? He's got the power. He might be able to clip him. You've seen how much the guy's been making improvements fight to fight. Then why isn't a year off going to be really good for him? But again, that might hinder his cardio. Cutting the weight after a year off might hinder him a little bit. Him gassing in the past might resurface. And Stephen Thompson's a guy that he can cruise 25 minutes, no problem.
Yeah.
How do you mix it up? You take this guy down. But like, who takes him down? Nobody, because he's so elusive. And Jeff Neal's not a wrestler anyways. So he's just got to sit on that punch and line him up. He's got the power to do it, but I don't want to see him get outworked and then get tired. So I'm just going to take the dog play. It's not my most confident play on the card, but it's main event action, 5 rounds. I think that does ever so slightly favor Thompson.
We got Jose Aldo taking on Marlon Chito Vera. Jose Aldo, minus 145 favorite. Vera can be had for plus 125. Rewatched Jose Aldo against Peter Yan, and I don't know what my mind was thinking at the time. It was a really savage beating, especially at the end of round 4, round 5.
Yeah, should have made it that far.
Aldo looked pretty fucking good.
Yeah, they're early.
In the first 3 rounds. Well, this is a 3-round fight here. He was taking shots from those shots to the body were definitely taking a lot out of him. He like keels over in round 1. He takes one like while he's on the ground and he really crumples, but still fought. He ended up winning round 2. Round 3 was super close. You could kind of go either way on it. And then as the fight wore on, the old Aldo, he always kind of slows down round 4, round 5, and Yan put him away. Probably about 20 shots that he didn't have to take in that spot. But honestly, I thought for 135, first time at 135, he looked pretty good. Rewatched Vera versus Sugar O'Malley there, and the leg injury. That was, who knows what would have happened if that fight, if the leg injury or whatever happened.
Yeah, it was kind of a deal breaker.
Yeah, like that completely killed the fight there. I'm surprised that the line is all that this close, to be perfectly honest. I like me some Jose Aldo at this point. What are your thoughts here?
Okay, I don't mind it as well. And the key reason is because it's a 3-round fight. And Chito Vera is notoriously a very, very, very slow starter. And we talk about it every time we talk about any of his fights. He's going to give up the first round. Why? Because he gave up the first round to Wuji Buren. Because he gave up the first round to Guido Canetti. It doesn't matter. He's a slow starter, right? The Sean O'Malley fight, well, even the Song Yadong fight right prior to that, he gives up the first round. Second round, he starts to build his way back into it. The third round, he's coming on strong. But not being able to get that finish is what ultimately costs him the decision. The Sean O'Malley fight, he's not doing any, I don't know. Rewatching it back, it looked like a classic slow start by Marlon Vera. He's just not really engaging all that much. He's not throwing a ton. He's letting Sean O'Malley lead the dance. Unfortunately, Sean O'Malley hurts his leg, which is something he did against Andre Sukumantath, which I know I just made that joke. It's a bone breaker. It wasn't even a broken bone. It was just like a tendon issue. It was like a calf cramp. Like I'm not exactly sure why Sean O'Malley gets these leg injuries, but Chito Vera is the beneficiary of him toppling over. That's cool. Against Jose Aldo's that faster starter, right? So if Marlon Vera just goes out, dinks around, feels the rhythm, feels the gauge, feels the speed, and just drops that first round to him. Well, now he needs to go out there and secure 2 and 3. And whereas we've been seeing Jose Aldo give up those later rounds, Jose Aldo fights the absolute best guys in the world. Peter Yan, for my money's worth, is the best guy in the world. I think he's the best 135-pounder on the planet. He's absolutely lethal. Being 135 pounders, maybe you don't have the most power in the world, so he's just output and volume and chips you away, and that's ultimately what happens the later the fight goes. Marlon Moraes was supposed to be the badass. It was a close fight. Aldo comes on in the 3rd round. Alexander Volkanovski, he's the best featherweight in the world right now. Like, and then the guys that are just good, they're not great. The Hanato Moicanos, the Jeremy Stevens, like how competitive does he look against those guys? Very. Can he fight the 45-pound champ? No, he's not there anymore. Can he fight the 35-pound champ? No, he's not anymore. I think it's crazy he's making 35. And he looks so good on the scales. And he comes out and he looks so good for bits and pieces here and there. I'm shocked that this guy's going to get a win at bantamweight. It's just a matter of time. Is Chito Vera the guy? I don't know. But this is Aldo's going to win that first round. I could see Vera coming on and just tiring him out and putting a work on him in the third round. Because one thing you got to keep in mind, people talk about Aldo, the leg kicks, the body work, such big power. But if he doesn't knock you out, is that when you can turn the tides on him? Like, Chito Vera has never been finished. Chito Vera is cast iron. He's very, very durable. Jose Aldo better make sure he wins that second round. He needs to bank these first 2 rounds and then play it safe after that. He's minus 145. He is the favorite. I do feel like Marlon Vera is a live dog, but the plus 125 price tag on Marlon Vera, just not enough for me. Just not enough for me to get back on him personally. Fight goes the distance. That's what I'm feeling because I don't think Aldo knocks out Marlon Vera. He's not going to submit Marlon Vera. So if Jose Aldo wins this fight, it's going to be Aldo by decision. If Marlon Vera does end up being the truth, I still don't think he knocks out Jose Aldo. I think he just works him 2 and 3, wins 2 and 3, picks up the 29-28, maybe a 3-2, who knows, but wins 2 and 3 and wins a decision. So fight goes the distance. I am going to lean towards Jose Aldo on that. But whereas I said the Neal Thompson fight's not my confident pick, Aldo Vera might be the closest fight on the card. I think it's matched pretty well. Both guys could surprise you a bit.
We got Michel Pereira taking on Chaos Williams. Michel Pereira, minus 125 favorite. Chaos Williams can be had for plus 105. Watched, obviously, in the lead up to his first 2 UFC fights. You watch the whole catalog of early Chaos Williams fights, and you're like, I see holes. You're like Kevin Lee. Like, I see holes in this guy's game. Obviously, Michel Pereira, the guy, some of his earlier fights are just such a absolute train wreck disaster of him just being a showman and not exactly a fighter. Last time out, you kind of see him finally starting to, be a little bit more technical. Think about, his career as a UFC fighter and not some sort of special event fun fight. I mean, this fight is like the pants off. I can't see how it's not going to be a good time. I'm scared to fade the death touch, though, is my big concern here. I mean, the Chaos Williams, just the power that he's demonstrated in his 2 UFC fights here, it's just stepping in front of that train. Luckily, I avoided the Al Hassan. I just thought the line was a little bit too wide in that spot. But stepping in front of that train is not something. It's like Nico Price before. I'm learning from my Nico Price failures in the past, where it was just I kept being like, this guy isn't all that good, and just knockout. Yeah, I just don't want to step in front of the train right now. My lean is Michel Pereira, but this is one that I think I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the show.
So we know Nico Price has the death touch. Why? We've seen it time and time again. Proven commodity that thing is. We know Rosenstruck has the death touch. He proved it. He's got it. Chaos Williams certainly appears to have the death touch. There is a large possibility that he, in fact, does have it. But I'm not 100% convinced just yet because it's a small sample size. When you see him on the regional scene, he's not murdering every single guy he's ever hit. In fact, he's in a really competitive 3-round fight with Tony Hervey just a few years ago. It's when he came to the UFC, Alex Morono runs straight into the pocket with his hands down, and he blasts him. Cool knockout, man. 39 seconds or something. Comes back almost a year later and gets Rasul Al-Hassan, and yeah, it's the same thing. He doesn't just crash in there forward, but he catches him, and it's an emphatic knockout. It's a huge win. But it's you got to beat some more guys. You got to beat some more top contenders before I'm fully sold on you. Michel Pereira can be the crazy, shit-eating wild man. He can be that guy. He can be nuts. He can be throwing cartwheel kicks and running off the cage. However, he is smart enough to realize it's opponents, right? It's who you're fighting. If you're fighting Tristan Connolly and you're a 6-1 favorite and you're twice the guy's size, he's a natural lightweight, and he's taking the fight on a week's notice, you can play around. You can do that stuff. But then when he lost against Diego's an opponent you can play around, but he opted not to because he just got embarrassed in his last fight. He cut the weight good, made 170 good, and he showed well-rounded skills against Diego.
Until he need him illegally.
Yeah, I know. And again, it's a hindsight fight because it's Diego's shot. Anybody can showcase skills against Diego, but it's he wasn't just going out there and striking. He was using his wrestling. He was using his grappling, and he looked really, really strong. This guy is a big 170-pound fighter. He used to fight at 185. He used to fight at light heavyweight. He used to fight at catchweights of 220 over in Korea. He's a big, strong guy. Him making 170, he's got some other skills. And then that Zalima Madaev fight, that's where he like puts it all together. Now this guy, he's striking with a guy who's supposed to be Zabit 2.0, and he's taking him down. He's grinding him. His cardio checks out. Like, I liked what I seen out of him. And just for shits and gigs, with 20 seconds left in the fight, he decides, I'm just going to dump this guy to the ground and choke him out with a rear naked choke. After defeating him soundly in the stand-up for almost 15 minutes. Like, he's able to put things around. Now, when he's fighting Chaos Williams, do you think he wants to do a cartwheel kick? No, because that's how you get absolutely knocked out. Chaos Williams is not someone that you take lightly. But you go out there and you use your other skills. Can Chaos Williams wrestle? Can Chaos Williams grapple? Can Chaos Williams fight for 2 or 3 rounds? You don't know the answer to almost any of those questions because you just haven't seen it yet, right? Whereas Pereira's putting it on. So yeah, when you talk about could he knock him out, we talked about the main event. Could he knock him out? Could he catch him? Like, anybody can catch anybody. This is the kind of fight where even so, it's, personified power. Could, Michelle Pereira end up on the wrong side of another Chaos Williams highlight? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to go with the well-rounded skill set. I'm going to say his striking is a little more refined. He's got a better jab, stay at the outside, mind your P's and Q's, and get this guy to the ground.
Baked into that, though.
Just rough him up, tire him up, break him if you can.
Baked into that is Michelle Pereira is likely to do something really, really stupid and leave an opening, though. Like, just because he didn't do it last time against Zalima Madaev,
I know.
Doesn't mean that it's not gonna happen
he was minus 145 favorite over Zalima Madaev, who is 0-2 in the UFC and had previously lost to Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. Why was he only a minus 140? Because it's baked in that he could even be winning the fight and still cost it for himself, the way he did against Diego Sanchez, or make a bonehead mistake, or all these different things. But listen, you were there. I called him losing to Tristan Connolly. I thought, you know what, this guy's playing too many games, and Tristan Connolly, who is a very soundly studied fighter, is going to find those holes and working on him. But the one thing I didn't expect was when Tristan Connolly got him in those 5-finger guillotines, when Tristan Connolly attacked this guy's neck, when this guy, he missed weight, right? He said his body was shutting down after the first round, after he's breakdancing his way to the ring. He fought out of all of those chokes. It was some gangster shit. He does have the heart of a warrior. His brain goes entertainment. If he loses 5 in a row, he's not in the same position of Jose Aldo or Stephen Thompson or Anthony Pettis. It's like, this guy's gonna give you one hell of a show. You keep him around, but at some point, it's like he realizes I need to get wins. To get those wins, you need to use your skill set, and he does have a decently well-rounded skill set. So I'm gonna go Michelle Pereira minus 125, and I like it better than the Aldo pick, and I like it better than the Stephen Thompson pick.
Interesting. It's basically the Michigan welterweight championship of the world.
Michigan, yeah.
No, both these guys are training out of Michigan right now. Smaller gyms, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hell of a show. Let's move on to the next one. We got Marlon Moraes taking on Rob Font. Moraes, minus 145. Font can be had for plus 125. Where's your head at here? And mind your P's and Q's, because the Boston Brigade or whatever they're.
The Boston Brigade. That's a good way to put it.
They're listening, Cody. They're going to attack you.
Yeah, well, okay. Honestly, I actually do agree. I think the dog pick on Rob Font is the way to go. I say that because with Marlon Moraes, it's like, again, he's another one of these guys that's not overly old. His problem is that he's just taking a lot of damage. He seems to have slowed down a notch, and I just don't know at what point is his chin compromised. You say that because his streak of wins, his three first-round finishes where it looks like he is the uncrowned champion of the world, Marlon Moraes is sick. He knocks out Sterling in 1 minute 7 seconds. He knocks out Jimmy Rivera in 33 seconds. And he guillotine chokes Rafael Assunção after rocking him 3 minutes and 17 seconds. They're all first-round finishes. This guy used to fight 5 rounds in World Series of Fighting. Surely, gas tank's not a problem, and he can finish early, and he can go late. Very, very dangerous. He comes in against Henry Cejudo. It's for the title. It's for the 135-pound bantamweight championship of the world. He's a minus 165 favorite in that spot. That's how much everyone's buying into Marlon, myself included. Marlon looks good. First round against Henry, he looks just like the first round he did in those other fights. The difference is he don't finish Henry in that first round. Second round, he starts to slow down massively. And then the third round, he's completely cooked. Henry puts it on him. The Jose Aldo fight, first round, he looks okay. Second round, he looks aight. In the third round, man, he's tired again. He's tired again. And Jose Aldo, of all people, making his first ever cut to 135 pounds, is taking him into deep waters. wins the third round over him. Well, geez, Marlon's gas tank just not holding up. And then the Corey Sandhagen fight, it's like there's levels. And Marlon was always the top level, right? What do you compare him to? He's beaten all the best guys in the world. But now it seems like he's a tad bit, his speed's kind of left him. He's a tad bit short. He's hittable. His chin's not quite there. And it's a bad loss to a guy like Corey Sandhagen. Rob Font's not Corey Sandhagen. I would definitely favor Sandhagen in that matchup. But he's got a nice jab. He stays long. He's got good technical, crisp boxing. The difference is I think Sandhagen's got a little more power. Rob Font hasn't really shown a whole lot of knockout power in his UFC tenure so far. He did knock out Thomas Almeida, but like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't go out there and get Marlon's respect, then it's a competitive striking match. And who wins in a competitive striking match between you two? Could be close. But 125 on Rob Font, like honestly, I'm willing to take that shot. He's been off for a little while. He's 33. I don't know how many improvements he could have made, but we know that technically he's sound. Technically, he's a good sharp striker. He could work the body. He could just beat him with a punch and hurt him is what I'm hoping. But as far as the ground game goes, like who knows? I think they're both black belts. I would prefer Marlon Moraes. I would say if he ends up on top of Rob Font, he's going to win the round. If he does win the first round, he wins the second round. Rob Font's not likely to come with that third round KO.
But based on the gas that we've seen from Marlon Moraes, if it ends up being a grappling affair, I imagine that's probably not good for him and as the fight wears on either.
Yeah, and it's so weird to me that a guy that used to routinely fight into later rounds and look good and kind of shine in that element is not able to do it anymore. But all of those fights, he was taking damage, you know? Like, I remember the Josh Hill fight. Like, he shatters his nose against Josh Hill, who was kind of definitely unproven at the time, ended up being an okay prospect, fights in Bellator now. But with Marlon, it's like one has to wonder, fighting the elite guys, training at the elite level, going through everything, how much does that take out of you? I don't think he's on the chopping block, considering he just fought for a title a few fights back, but his record as of late...
Managed by Ali.
And he's managed by Ali, so his job is probably very safe. But yeah, this is... I don't love this fight, but I'm going to define it as a dog or pass situation. And Rob Font plus 125, I don't have a dog to this point. I've got three favorites. Actually, Stephen Thompson's even money. I guess call it whatever you want it. Rob Font at plus 125, winnable fight for him. But he's definitely going to have to put the pressure on him, hurt him, sting him, and then secure those later rounds.
That makes sense. 7,200 on DraftKings, I imagine Font will be one of the more. Marlon Moraes is just a little bit too expensive at $9K.
Do you want to know the last thing I want to throw on that?
That's kind of the price based on the odds that just doesn't really fit where the odds are at.
Do you want to know one thing else I want to throw on that? Is the Corey Sandhagen fight, right? You watch it. Nasty knockout, that wheel kick, by the way. But he hits Marlon, he points at him, and he says, "I broke your orbital." And the fight's 2 months ago, right? So it's like, remember we were talking about things you can't train through? Like, an orbital's a broken eye socket, in case you don't know.
He didn't break his orbital. He was messing with him.
Yeah, but it's just like the guy's taken some work, and to come off that knockout and then 2 months later you're back in the game, technically knocked out by Henry as well. Like, it's all damage, and that's where I think he's slowing down, and that's where I think Rob Font's going to be a bit of a problem. But again, yeah, it's just a dogger pass for me.
We got Greg Hardy taking on Marcin Tybura. Greg Hardy, a minus 120 favorite. Tybura plus 100. Here we go, Greg Hardy. We're starting to get back up into the higher level of competition. I see a lot of people out there really like themselves some Marcin Tybura. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Greg Hardy hasn't exactly historically been, people think football player, oh, this guy must be some sort of powerhouse, first round finisher. He did that to some real, regional level scrubs at the beginning of his career. But those have always been the spots where Marcin Tybura has struggled the most. Sakai absolutely flattened him in under a minute. But I don't know, that last fight for Tybura, I don't know if that was a product of Ben Rothwell just being cooked, or
Partly.
Marcin Tybura has stepped up to a different level at this point in his career, because Greg Hardy has been pretty untested in terms of the grappling. If you take him down, nobody really has. He's been matched up accordingly so that we haven't had to see those holes in his game. But Tybura takes him down here. I'm very, very curious to see what happens. Tybura probably, he throws some pretty lethal kicks. We've seen those along the way. For a big man, he's able to get that leg up there and on the button. It's a tough fight for Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy has looked very, very durable. Obviously went the distance against Volkov. I'm kind of leaning towards Marcin Tybura here, but they've been so strategic in how they have booked Greg Hardy all along the way here that I'm interested to hear what you have to say before I make any sort of moves here.
Matt, hit me with what's the over 1.5, the over 2.5, and the fight goes the distance.
They actually are. I was looking at that already.
Yeah,
I think it was like minus 205, over 2.5. They didn't even price a 1.5 because I was looking for a 1.5.
Wow, that's the way to go.
So Hardy and Tybura over 1.5 is minus 175, over 2.5 plus 100.
Wow.
Oh.
You see, I
Maybe
like
people
that.
have moved in on that. I was looking at those things earlier in the week, and I thought I didn't see a 1.5 even price.
So the reason why you would go in that direction is that you look at Marcin Tybura, who's been on a little bit of a career resurgence, won his last 3 fights, but like decision, and does not mind grinding you up against the cage. We've seen him just take down Spivak and control him. We've seen him do the exact same thing against Max Christian, against Ben Rothwell. Mixes it up a little bit, but just slows the pace down. They're all decision victories. How he's losing, you see he's getting knocked out. Craig Hardy's got that persona of the big knockout artist, knocked out a ton of guys prior to coming to the UFC, did knock out Maurice Green in his last fight, but like not exactly a huge power puncher. I don't know if he's going to overextend himself looking for that knockout. I could see this being more of a grinding affair, a lot of cage work. And yeah, I think the over 1.5 hits. I think there's a good possibility this fight's going to go the distance. It's got to be something like a Polish power thing and like something in the water in Poland, because Jan Blachowicz, 35 years old, I think, comes just out of left field and just reinvents himself. Starts his UFC run 2-4, goes on a nice little run, and eventually captures a UFC light heavyweight title for his efforts. And, it looks like a legitimate threat to a lot of the guys in the division, no doubt. I mean, he's the interim, technically. John Jones probably still beat him, but you get what I'm saying. With Marcin Tybura, I'd seen his interview with him where he was like, seeing Jan do that really inspired me. That's like, no, I can turn this around. At the end of 2019, he's getting knocked out by Shamil Abdurakhimov and Augusto Sakai. It's not looking good for him. The Sakai knockout especially, he looked fat, he looked out of shape, he got knocked out in 59 seconds, and it was widely speculated he was going back to KSW. But what does he do in 2020? A pandemic year. He rattles off 3 straight victories, right? He's undefeated this year. He's 3-0. This is his 4th fight. Keeping him routinely in camp, keeping him routinely in shape, keeping him routinely going rounds. He's ready to go. And in this fight, I would give him a slight striking advantage in that he's classically trained. Everybody remembers the Victor Pesta head kick where it's like, where did that come from? But it's like, I think he used to be a karate guy way back in the day. He can lift that leg. His strikes, they're a lot straighter than Greg Hardy's. They don't have that type of zip. But like a lot of fighters that have had to adjust their games as age has kind of set in, he switched from being a striker to hold you up against the cage and grind you. And where that doesn't bode well for Hardy is I don't know how he's going to continuously get his back off the cage, but he's got asthma, He's once known for getting himself a no contest from taking a puffer between rounds against Alan Crowder.
I mean, he's a former defensive lineman in the NFL. I think it's going to be a lot harder to hold him up against the cage than maybe we've seen.
I don't know. It's like first down, Greg, go. And then it's done. It's just like, oh, shit. And it's just like, okay, sweet. Well, all good, man.
Overtime.
Right, because you sacked the guy. So there's 2 and 16, 2nd and 16. So, Greg, go sit on the bench, and we'll put in the second string because they're 2nd and 16, so we're good.
Nickel formation.
And then as soon as he sits on the bench, you know what they do? They strap on the oxygen, and they're like, good man, Greg, good man. Now in the UFC, it's like you got to fight 15 minutes, and he can, but that's why I think this goes to decision, because ATT's like, oh, dude, you need to pace yourself because you probably don't have the greatest gas tank. The Volkov fight, it goes the distance. It's only 3 rounds. But it's like it's him pacing himself. Volkov just ended up being the better technician, the longer fighter, more experience, and it shined through. Since then, Hardy's fought a lot of green guys and a lot of guys that just didn't really have much to offer. Tybura is different than that. So, to be honest, Tybura falls into a similar situation as Stephen Thompson, where it's like he's a decent dog pick, only he's not a dog pick. He's plus 100. It's even money. I've bet Greg Hardy quite a lot, and I don't mind it. They match him up terribly.
Yeah, we were on him against Green, even though he was a pretty big chalk favorite. We just didn't think Green really presented too many problems.
And where that one screwed me up is
the
I
leg
thought
kicks
we would
are
get
still
at
an
least 2
issue
rounds.
for him too, but I don't know. Does Tybura really commit to leg kicks all that much? Not really.
I think Tybura will just strike, clinch. And whereas you could tell me, well, is he not going to get tired the more he tries to grapple? It's like, I don't think so, because he's been going 15. This is, again, his 4th fight this year, and he's highly motivated, right? It's a good spot to be in. It's another, again, dog or pass, but it's just not, there's not a whole lot of dog money there. So it is what it is. It's a 50-50 fight. I'm going to have to go with Tybura on this one.
And we got Taylor Santos taking on your girl, Jillian Robertson, minus 115. Santos, minus 105. Robertson, pretty much a straight pick. Who you got here?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting fight. I don't mind Jillian Robertson. Taylor Santos was supposed to fight, obviously, against Montana De La Rosa. Fight gets scrapped. She just gets rebooked. But what I liked in that fight against Montana De La Rosa is that she had the wrestling background. She had the wrestling advantage, that maybe she was able to take this fight to the ground. The way that we've seen Mero Barella take down and out-grapple Taylor Santos, like, why could Montana De La Rosa theoretically not do the same thing? Jillian Robertson doesn't have the same high school wrestling pedigree. I think Montana may have wrestled collegiately a little bit. She doesn't have like those credentials, but she's bigger and she's stronger and she's able to get these fights to the ground. She's a BJJ black belt. She trains at American Top Team. They always have really good game plans for her. One thing I don't like is that she tends like, if she doesn't
disadvantage,
and if she doesn't have her way, she tends to crumple a little bit. Like her courage is not the highest. Like she's not one of these people that'll gut out being down 2 rounds to try to pull something off for you. So what I don't want is that if Taylor Santos starts to resist her, that maybe she starts to fade. But it's like I think ultimately this ends up being more of a grappling match. Jillian Robertson should be able to get the fight to the ground and should be able to out-grapple her. If Taylor Santos is able to stuff a few of these takedowns, keep the fight standing, use that 5-inch reach advantage, and out-strike her, is Taylor Santos like a murderous knockout puncher? Like, no, not really. Like, would she be able to out-punch Jillian Robertson? Sure, yeah. Would she be able to bust her up? Yeah, sure. Could she win this fight? Yeah, definitely. Is she the favorite at minus 115? Like, I don't know. I got to kind of lean with that other side. Again, there's no dog in this fight. This is one of the reasons why the bookie never loses, right?
They got the juice.
Yeah, because you can hit a 10-1 2 weeks ago and then get fucking killed last week. It's the way the game goes. But obviously, a line like this where you've got minus 115 for Taylor Santos, minus 105 Jillian Robertson, you know, the bookie keeps the other bit. So, I mean, you lose either way. It's a close fight, I will admit. I think Jillian Robertson's grappling pedigree should be able to win her outright. And then, being an ATT, having that game plan, knowing you have a coaching staff that realizes how to break down Taylor Santos. Taylor, so far, has had a regional scene.
They wouldn't
career.
have had much time to put in, though, on that, right?
No, but I think with Taylor, you can't watch any of her early fights, right? Because they're not readily available. Yeah. She's fighting 0-1 opponents on the Brazilian regional scene. So what can you go off of? You can go off of 2 fights in the UFC where she's the tale of 2 fighters, right? One of them looks awful, easy to get to take down, and you can easily grind her from top control. And the other one against Molly McCann, she's doing it against Molly McCann. Now, let me ask you, is Taylor Santos going to come out and take down Jillian Robertson and grind it from top position? Like,
I don't think that would be very wise.
Right,
based
so
on
keep the fight
where
standing.
Her advantages are.
Yeah, keep the fight standing and out-strike her, right? That's the move. But it's like, she didn't want to strike with Molly McCann, who, by the way, she also had a massive reach advantage over. She wanted to take her down. Mm-hmm. She wanted to grapple. She got out-grappled, now she wants to grapple. So I haven't seen enough in the striking to tell you that that's a conceivable path to victory that she's definitely going to go out and do. Again, she's the favorite. I didn't really see it. I think the line opened up a lot higher for Taylor Santos and maybe is starting to even up. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. But the play is going to be ever so slightly Jillian Robertson.
We got Anthony Showtime Pettis taking on. I'm going to pick. I mean, I was going to bet Montana De La Rosa last time out.
It's women's MMA, dog. I mean, take your pick your
So,
poison.
yeah, my pick is Robertson as well, based on hopefully we get this fight to the mat and she fights the fight that she wants to fight. But, yeah, I don't feel too great about it. We got Anthony Showtime Pettis taking on Alex Morono, minus 230 Pettis, plus 190 Morono. I don't know. I never really like Anthony Pettis as a welterweight. That is my big concern.
He knocked out the headliner.
That is true. He didn't look
so
good in that
no,
fight.
he looked awful.
He was getting killed the entire time.
Awful.
He beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Was that at 170 last time out?
It was at a 170. Yeah, at 170.
I mean, but he's fighting a 155-pounder at 170 pounds.
Sure.
Both guys kind of just agree, hey, let's not cut weight. He doesn't give up too much size to Morono, to be perfectly honest. Like, the reach is pretty comparable. They're both like 5'11", I believe. So it's not too big of a deal, but minus 230, end of the year. Anthony Pettis way down on the card. I don't know. I just don't feel great about going to the window and betting Anthony Pettis, but I am picking him to win here. I think he's just the more technical striker, and we know that he's a dog, he's a warrior for the most part, unless somebody puts it on him really, really early on. Maybe Morono is the guy to come do that, but technically, I just feel like Anthony Pettis has just a lot more skills, flash, speed, all of that. So Pettis is the pick. Haven't added him to anything yet. I mean, I haven't even bet anything yet. Still licking my wounds from Jacare last week.
Yeah, there's no world that exists that I'm betting Anthony Pettis. Minus 230, even over a guy like Alex Morono. And you know me, Paul. You know I'm not an Anthony Pettis guy. And it's not just hate for Anthony Pettis. It's just beyond that. His skills are extremely diminished. And I am going to sit here and argue with you. His skills weren't really all that good to begin with. Let me take you all the way back to his WEC career, right? He had lost to my actual boy, Bart Palashewski. Split decision. Shout out to Bart. Bartimus doesn't fight anymore. The fucking... He's known for one kick, the Showtime kick. He runs around the cage. He kicks Benson Henderson in the face. Well, people don't remember that was a 5-round fight that I had scored for Benson Henderson prior to that Showtime kick. Even with that, I thought Benson Henderson probably should have won, but it was such a cool kick that, like, how can you not score for him? So Pettis gets it. His UFC debut against Clay Guida, he got taken down. He got out-grappled. He lost. He lost his UFC debut after the Showtime kick, the very next fight. This big spectated moment. Anthony Pettis so badass. But it's just his wins, right? Like, he would beat guys, and he would look okay, and it was flashy, and he did beat a different generation's top guys. Donald Cerrone was a top guy. Joe Lozon was a top guy. Benson Henderson was a top guy. Gilbert Melendez was a top guy. You know what they all have in common? They're all done. Joe Lozon's retired. He had a cool walkout moment in Boston. That's cool for him. Donald Cerrone's definitely at the end of the line. Benson Henderson, you just seen him over in Bellator. He's shot to bits. He's not the same guy anymore. Gilbert Melendez. Funny enough, Anthony Pettis lost that first round to Gilbert Melendez and then caught him in a guillotine. But he's retired, you know? He's got a commentating gig now. It's a different era. The Rafael Dos Anjos fight, that was the moment where it was like, oh shit, he got thrashed. He lost at 50-45. He got his eye socket broken. His orbital broke as well. But it was pressure. It was pressure, pressure, pressure. All of a sudden, where was the flashiness? Where was all the technical striking, right? You just pressure this guy and take him down. The very next fight against Eddie Alvarez, he just does the same thing. I'll just pressure you. Pressure and take you down. And it wins him the fight.
You can't throw the kicks when you're on your back foot.
Edson Barbosa. Now, I remember people being like, dude, he's just too technical for Edson Barbosa. It's like, yeah, the difference is that Edson Barbosa is a pressure fighter, and Anthony doesn't want to be pressured. He wants to fight you the way he fought Benson. He wants to fight you the way he fought Gil. He wants to fight you the way he fought Donald Cerrone, where you're backing up like, oh, shit, it's Anthony Pettis. These other guys didn't give a fuck. They moved forward on him. They pressured him. He's losing those fights. The Charles Oliveira fight, he's actually losing the fight until Charles pulled a backdoor, which he doesn't do anymore. The Max Holloway fight, he's completely outclassed. You were at that fight live. He was never in it. He looked awful. It was this like bummed fight down to 145. The Jim Miller fight, he did not look good. The Dustin Poirier fight, he had a rib injury. The Tony Ferguson fight, he broke his hand. The Stephen Thompson fight, he's backing up the entire time before landing one strike. The Nate Diaz fight, he got completely out-grappled by Nate Diaz, pillar to post. His striking did look good in that fight, but it didn't matter because like he'd hit Diaz twice and he'd just get taken down. The Diego Ferreira fight, it showed you, I was like, dude, Diego Ferreira is older than you, and his skills are modern. He has modern skills. You do not have modern skills. And then the Donald Cerrone fight is a win. Gets him back in the win column. You rewatch it, he probably lost. It's not exactly a spectacular victory for him. So at 170, I think his best days were at 55. Mm-hmm. He tried to make 145. Why? Because he knew, you know what? I can't do it at 55 anymore. Comes up to 170 and has had relatively no success, but shows a win over Stephen Thompson, shows a win over Donald Cerrone. Don't really want to cut weight no more. I'm winning some fights at 170. Why not? And should he be the favorite? Yeah, he should because he's fighting Alex Morono. But should he be a 230 favorite over Alex Morono? No. And so this is why Alex Morono doesn't have the skills that all those other guys do, but why he could still be victorious is he's a pressure guy. And whereas Chaos Williams knocked him into next week, Anthony Pettis is not going to do that. So he's coming off a win over Riz McKee. And how do you go from fighting Riz McKee to fighting Anthony Pettis? Well, it's the same game plan. You need to pressure this guy. You need to outvolume. You need to stay in his face. And why not? Because I didn't think he could do it. He never wrestles anybody. But against Riz McKee, he actually wrestles for the first time. And he takes him down. And then the post-fight, he goes, I hit this guy so many times standing. I was thinking to myself, what do I got to do to take him out? And then I took him down, and I was like, this is a lot easier. Well, you're a BJJ black belt. You're a decent grappler. And you know what? Whereas I'd say your wrestling's not good enough to take down Anthony Pettis, everybody that wants to take down Anthony Pettis conceivably does. So Morono's live in that he could throw in a takedown and get on top, but he's also live in that he could just stay in his face and work him. And yet, could he get caught? Sure. Is Anthony Pettis going to catch him with that spectacular highlight reel KO? I don't think so. I think Anthony Pettis is going to go join brother Sergio Pettis on the Bellator roster starting in 2021. If he actually wants to fight. And the last thing we got going for us, and this is a good thing, is that Anthony will probably have Duke Roufus in his corner, which means high likelihood Duke just throws in the fucking towel at some point and is just like, we're out of here. So double path of victory for a plus 190 favorite or underdog. Sign me up for Alex Morono, who I realize is Alex Morono, but I still think has a chance to win this fight.
All right, dog or pass. I know you're straight up. Let's go on Alex Morono.
I'm trying to think of guys in the division that I'd pick Anthony Pettis over. Riz McKee, there's a common guy. If they was to fight him, maybe he would get the victory. But Morono is like, this is his Super Bowl. This is the sweetest thing that's ever happened to this guy in his life.
He has a chance. Former champion.
He has a chance to go get a career highlight win. He has a chance to go get a career payday. He has a chance to maybe get a fight of the night because it is flashy Anthony Pettis and really put himself on the map. Anthony Pettis, meanwhile, must realize he's hitting rock bottom. Probably drinking a couple red stripes as well, thinking to himself, what the fuck happened, man? But I'll tell you what happened. Probably last fight on the deal. Let's go to Bellator. Sergio looks good in Bellator. Didn't look good in the UFC. Looks good in Bellator. Let's go reinvigorate ourselves over there.
We got Sajara Eubanks taking on Panny Kianzad. Eubanks minus 160, Kianzad plus 140. You got any takes on this one?
I would say Panny Kianzad is another live underdog. This might be a card where a lot of underdogs are coming through. I say that she's the bigger girl, and you know what? She's made a lot of improvements, but one of them, namely, is that she's a lot harder to take down. Now, if you remember him back in the day in Invicta, she's strong. She's a good aggressive striker, comes forward. But at some points, like, she starts getting taken down. Her striking style is not great against grapplers, doesn't match up. You see her in The Ultimate Fighter. She looks good in The Ultimate Fighter, makes the finals against Macy Chiasson. And then, Macy Chiasson, there's that 145 pounds that fight was. Chiasson, bigger, stronger, able to take her down, able to submit her. The wins, the losses since then, she lost to Julia Avila, and then she beat Jess Rose Clark and Betch Correia. But what I'm taking away from it is that, like, she's making improvements still. She's a lot harder to take down. She's a better striker, and she's big. So when you look at the Macy Chiasson loss, she's a 145-pounder. But she stuffed a lot of those I don't know, I guess Macy Chiasson's just too big for her, so to speak. If she keeps this fight standing against Eubanks, she's going to have the striking advantage, no doubt. It's whether Eubanks is able to take her down. The reason why I'm kind of leaning towards Kianzad being that live underdog is that she has a significant striking advantage, and she's giving up the grappling. But being that she used to fight at 145 pounds on The Ultimate Fighter, being that she has fought largely at 135 pounds and looks big for the weight class, Eubanks is she's overachieving a little bit at 135 pounds.
Eubanks has had gas issues. If she can't control the action pillar to post.
She's had gas issues, and then this is why MMA is just, from a betting perspective, it's such a great sport, right? So everyone's writing off Eubanks. Oh, this girl's got gas issues. She can't fight into later rounds. Her skill set is not, keeping up with the times, and she lost to Betch Correia. Her career's over. She drops to 4-4. It's over. But you fight Sarah Moraes, where it's like, okay, yeah, you could beat Sarah Moraes, and then the Julia Avila fight. She's a big underdog. I'm all in on Julia Avila. I don't think that Eubanks got a shot. And she looks really good. And now just like she's everybody's darling again. Like this is a legitimate title contender. I don't think so. I think her best chance of getting to the highest peak of the mountain was she was supposed to fight Valentina. She got scheduled for a fight with Valentina, right? She was supposed to headline some pay-per-view against Valentina Shevchenko, and she pulled out, and then the fight never got booked, and it never will get booked again at this point. But she had that little bit of momentum. She beats Avila. She got a little bit going. And then the Ketlin Vieira fight, like, it's just like she loses soundly. Vieira had a bit of a layoff, came back. She had actually just lost to Irene Aldana, took on some time off, came back and, like, looked career best. Eubanks is who we think she is.
Well, Eubanks struggled because she was taking on Ketlin Vieira, who is considerably bigger than her.
Yeah, and it's like because she used to be the biggest 125er out there, that's her natural advantage. Team Lloyd Irvin, great grappler, decent wrestling, but it's more so just if I can get you to the ground and establish top control on you, you're going to be in trouble. The Avila fight, it's like her striking looked a little bit better. The Aspen Ladd fight, her striking looked not very good, but good enough to look good against Aspen Ladd. Her striking is awful. it's like you do see those little glimpses. It's just like she has trouble putting it together for 15 minutes over larger opponents. With Pani is going to be the bigger opponent. I could see Eubanks going out there and taking her down, but I think it's going to be tougher than that. I think it's going to be a little more difficult to just take down Pani Kianzad at will. And if she doesn't, and this fight ends up being stand-up, then it's like, okay, Pani's got the striking advantage. She's probably got a slight cardio advantage, and she's probably going to be able to just, move forward and kind of have her way a little bit, at least certainly on output, right? So that's the last thing I want to mention with Pani Kianzad is you look at that last fight against Betchkohea, and she lands 103 significant strikes. It's nice, It's just constant output, constant work, cardio checks out. It's a good performance. The fight before that with Jessie Jess Rose Clark, 98 significant strikes landed, just outworks this girl. When Jessie Jess, who's big and strong, by the way, tries to take her down, she just snuffs the attempts. The Avila fight, she never got taken down. In fact, she got a takedown on Julia, which is surprising enough. And the Macy Chason fight, she got choked out, but she never did get taken down. So takedown defense hasn't really been one of her issues so far in the UFC. And if it's not an issue in this fight, keep it standing. The output's going to win her out the day. So, again, if it's 50-50, I don't really want to pardon it. If she's slight favorite, I don't want to pardon it. But you're giving me a good price tag on Pani Kianzad plus 140. And so Pani Kianzad plus 140, fight goes the distance. Pani Kianzad by decision, all plus money.
Pretty sure the fight goes to prop bet Matt. Fight goes to the decision on Eubanks Kianzad's pretty juiced, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the way up to minus 325.
And
So
the over is
what's-
minus 400 over 2.5 rounds.
Over 1.5 is minus 650. Over 2.5 is minus 370.
What's Pani by decision? Because she's plus 140 straight. If it's no better than plus 160, I would just take her straight up.
I mean, it's plus 140 straight up. Why wouldn't you just take that?
Well, it depends what the by decision is, but it's probably, being that she's more of a decision fighter.
Probably plus 300.
Plus 190.
Ew.
No,
No, thank you.
Yeah, probably not overly worth it. I mean, unless you're a degen.
There's 14 fights. You don't have to bet every single one.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, we'll see how many hold together.
Yeah, let's hope we have at least 12. I think another two.
But I think
another
Penny's
two
a
are
lot
probably
better
going to pull out. And this next one, I'd seen some people talking about rumors of this one maybe not happening. Well, hopefully that's all fake news. But we got Carl Robertson taking on Dalka Lungiambula, Dalka champion. We're going to refer to him.
Dalka champion. Lungiambula.
Which is, how he likes to be referred to. That's what his social media has and everything like that. Roberson, minus 255 favorite. Dalka can be had. Dalka champion can be had for plus 215. I mean, Dalka at EFC used to fight at heavyweight, and he was big. He was strong. Super, way too short, giving up a lot of reach and intangibles to other people. Moves down to 205. Looks like a fucking beast.
Jacked. Super jacked.
Absolute jacked. I mean, Ankalaev, rewatch that Ankalaev fight, and he was outclassed. Especially when Ankalaev was able to take him down and get on top. He ends up eating that front kick up the middle. But anybody who's watched this show knows that we are super high on Magomed Ankalaev. That guy
he could do it all.
He could probably win the belt in this division.
He could, honestly,
right now,
I think he's a top 5 guy.
I think he's right in the mix. I'm not going to say that he's going to win the belt.
It's the weakest division in the UFC. Well,
I don't know when he's going to get that opportunity, but he's right there with the top guys, in my opinion. So, he got to the round 3 against him. All good in the hood. Carl Roberson, most of his losses usually end up happening that, they get into grappling exchanges and he gets choked out. I don't see that being a big time threat from Lungiambula. I think Roberson has the more, refined kickboxing, striking, but Dalka at 185, this guy is gonna just be there's Cannonier who was kind of big, out of shape when he was at heavyweight. And then 205,
right.
You got a little bit better. And then 185, you're this guy's jacked.
Dalka gonna be that guy?
Lungiambula already looked super jacked at heavyweight. Light heavyweight looked incredibly jacked. Strip another 20 pounds off of that guy and watch out. He's going to be super, super strong. The striking technique is nowhere close to the level of Robertson. I understand why Robertson is the favorite in this spot, but if I had to bet, I think it would be a dogger pass situation here. I think Dalka is just, especially at 185. We'll see what he looks like when he shows up on the scales, But this guy's super, super strong. He's gonna definitely have a strength advantage. He's a former judo guy. I don't like the grappling that I see. Like, I don't think Roberson's in danger of getting submitted if they do get to the ground, but I don't know. There could be. I think Dalka's definitely live here, and Roberson's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. Roberson should be able to control the striking while they're on the feet most of the time, but it really only takes one. And I'm kind of terrified to think of what Dalka's going to look like at 185. What's your take here?
Yeah, well, see, you got to watch the weigh-ins, right? What is Dalka going to look at 185? Because not only did he used to fight at heavyweight, and not only was he shredded at 205, like big, thick guy, he's 35 years old. So it's a bit of odd timing about like why at 35 would you now decide? And you and I have talked about this for years, right? 55 to 45, 10 pounds. 45 to 35, 10 pounds. 35 to 25, 10 pounds. 205 to 85 is 20 pounds, dog. You're not dropping one weight class, you're dropping two weight classes.
It's a lifestyle change.
He's 35 years old.
And he didn't look like he had much to lose.
Dude, you see the traps on him? Like, you seen the arms on him? You seen the neck on the guy? Like, he's a big, thick dude.
He doesn't have a neck.
Oh, yeah. Because he's a big, thick dude. How do you now drop down to 185? You need to lose some of the muscle mass. If you lose some of the muscle mass, are you the same guy that got you to the dance? And to that extent, he reminds me of Abdul Razak Al Hassan, right? I think they're both judo black belts. And they're bangers, man. They both like to go in there. They're both athletic enough guys. They're both supremely jacked, and they like to try to end this fight as quick as they can with a knockout. The longer you can extend them, the longer that they're going to have holes in the game. As far as them being judo black belts, I think they have some judo. Once they're on the ground, they don't got great BJJ. No. Like, they kind of look fish out of the water. And that's what my problem is in this Carl Roberson fight, is that Carl Roberson is also fish out of the water when the fight hits the ground. But, you know, maybe we can give him a pass in that he's losing to the Cesar Ferreiras of the world on the ground, who's a credible BJJ black belt. He's losing to the Glover Teixeiras of the world, who's a credible BJJ black belt, and a 205-pound man, right? He's losing to the Marvin Vittoris of the world, whereas most people probably wouldn't have thought that was too impressive until about 2 weeks ago, when it's like, oh shit, this guy's a top 5 guy in the division, right? So Robertson has grappling problems, no doubt about it. But does he have striking problems? No, he's a former Glory kickboxer. He actually took a short-nosed debut, his kickboxing debut against Jerome Le Banner in France, beat Jerome Le Banner. You're not going to get a decision in France over the GOAT, so he loses, sure. But it's like right from the get-go, it's like, okay. He didn't look good in Glory. He lost to Justin Jacoby and Michael Lemaire. They're both American regional show guys. But you see where it's like striking's on a different level compared to a lot of MMA strikers, right? Like, he's going to be able to intercept these guys. He's going to be able to set traps. He's going to be able to see a lot of stuff coming. Where what's giving him trouble is that these guys are just plowing to the ground and taking him down. When I look at this fight with Dalcha, it's like Dalcha might have the grappling advantage, right? But he's not going to use it. He's going to try to stand there and bang with him. And if you try to bum forward on Carl Roberson and bomb him, you're going to get caught, man. Like, he's the better striker in this spot. You got to grind him. You got to take him down. I don't think I can trust Dalcha to actually do that. So I would lean towards Carl Roberson. It's a dangerous spot. And I know where you're saying live dog, 255 Carl Roberson. We should be confident in this. This should be nearly a walk in the park. It's like, ooh, there's a lot more question marks than that. But if it ends up being a striking
before
battle,
you make any.
Yeah, that's fair.
He could just, I don't know. It's the problem with Dalka is I've seen like one submission from like early in his career against some like nobody scrub, and he gets an arm bar and the guy's still kind of like moving around. He's able to hold it, and it's like a lot of his takedowns, it's purely on strength. It's not exactly technique. He just barges forward and he's just able to outmuscle people to the ground. Like, maybe he's able to do that against Roberson, but Roberson does have a much better skill set all the way around.
Do you want to know a crazy stat, which is like, I don't know how to say it without someone taking it the wrong way, but like Dalcha is one of these like freaking natures, right? Where he's 5'8" with a 76-inch reach. It's nuts. How he fought at heavyweight, I don't know. How he fought at light heavyweight, I don't know. He's only 5'8". Middleweight's the class for him. And with the 76 range, it's like right on. Unfortunately, it's like the dude you're fighting 6'1" and has a pretty similar reach and is a much better kickboxer. So like, what do you do? You're right though. Got to watch the weigh-ins. Now you could say dog or pass. I'm gonna say Carl Roberson. I do not like the price. And the 9,300 Don't really like that on DraftKings, but we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, Lungiambula was able to take, until the perfect up kick right up the middle, he was able to take a lot of punishment. So I don't think he's going to get starched in the first round by Roberson, and that's for that 93 price tag. When we talk about DraftKings, that's what I would kind of need from him. All right, we move on down. We got a catchweight affair between Winn and Antonio Arroyo. Arroyo is minus 155 favorite. Winn is plus 135. Catchweight 195. Eh?
Yeah, I know, eh? Such bum stuff out of
Red
Winn.
flag.
Winn's always pulling these bum-ass moves.
He should be
World champion. he should
be at the very
Yeah,
least
yeah.
able to make 185.
No. This guy can't do nothing.
He's just too small,
I drank the
undersized, doesn't have the gas. Maybe those extra 10 pounds that he's going to be carrying into this fight. Maybe that helps him to be able to utilize that wrestling that, DC has told us all about. But it's hard to trust a guy who you think, you know what, I think his best path to victory here is to secure takedowns, keep this dirty, ground and pound, do that type of thing. Well, if you can't do that for 3 rounds, and I'm not convinced that you really have finishing power, it's tough to trust you. So I suppose my pick here is Antonio Arroyo, but I don't love this fight. What about you?
Yeah. I will be the first to admit I can't laugh at you for liking Winn. I like Winn. I thought this guy had legitimate skills because DC, every time he talks about him, right? Fucking wrestling's so good. Khabib's boys come over from Russia, and it's like Winn's the American hitman. He's the guy that wrestles these guys on the mats to show them, like, what's up? USA knows how to wrestle, too. He's got great credentials, right? Problem is, I guess similar to Adalka, it's like he's not fighting in the right weight class. He's 5'8". And you know what? He's fighting at middleweight, which is funny because that's what Adalka's coming down to. But it's like he's undersized in there every single time. So it's like, well, how's his boxing? And again, I drank the Kool-Aid. How's his boxing? Not very good. But prior to coming to the UFC, it looked okay. It doesn't look like he has any pow, right? He's got no pop in those punches. He ain't going to go knock you out. But he's got some decent enough hands. The fight with Tom Lawler is on that Liddell Ortiz 3 pay-per-view. Oh, my God. Why did I buy that? But I did. And it's like Winn was one of the bright points. Like Tom Lawler's UFC, he's released from the UFC at this point, clearly. His best days are behind him. Can't take a punch. And that was one takeaway. It was like, why didn't Winn knock out Tom Lawler? Why did he win a decision? Oh, well, doesn't matter. Comes to the UFC against Eric Spicely. Well, you know what I sound like? If you can go back and listen to that show, I sound like, just like DC, right? Because it's like he's going to kill Eric Spicely. He's only a minus 285 favorite, which is a gift from the gods. And something? He did win. But he didn't look good against Eric Spicely. Fight went the decision, as they always do with Winn. It doesn't seem like he's got any finishing abilities. But it's like he hit him with everything in the kitchen sink and couldn't knock him out. And then he himself took a lot of damage in that fight against someone who he's a 3-1 favorite over, who had no business being in there with him. He made Eric Spicely look good. And then everything he's done since then is just like a massive decline, Darren Stewart beating you. This guy can't wrestle. This guy's, a British striker. But it's like Winn can take you down. He can take down anybody in this division. He doesn't seem to be able to hold down anybody in this division. They're just useless takedowns. And the Mearshart fight's even more of a piss off because the takedowns are beautiful. And it's like Mearshart just gets up. Mm-hmm. This guy can't hold him down. Now when the striking happens... Remember we were saying Dolce was a freak of nature? Dude, it's 5'8". He's got a 76-inch reach. Okay, well, to put things into perspective, Winn, I didn't even know this until just now. I'm shocked that I didn't know that. That seems wrong to me. Apparently, Fight Metrics says he's actually 5'6". That seems fucking off.
No, that seems about right to me.
Yeah, does it?
He's way.
5'6". Damn.
He looks
now
like
you're learning new things every day. All I do is watch fights. All I do is know these guys.
The world's biggest midget, man. He's got such a weird body type.
Yeah, that's whack. That's
why
whack.
it's shocking that 185. Whack. I mean, 170 is probably.
But he's built like DC.
Yeah.
Big fat belly on him, you know, and it just doesn't look like he could ever be ripped. He looks thick, 2 C's, just like one of these guys that's the way he's built.
5'6", even at 170, it's just like you're giving up 5 inches of 4 to 5 inches of height against everybody.
Yeah, and you know what? He's got a 70-inch reach, right? So again, it's like not a Dolce where it's like, well, I'm not the tallest guy, but I've got a nice little reach on me. It's just like, no, he's got a small little reach. A middleweight with a 70-inch reach, like you don't hear that shit.
No.
And so his hands are okay, but he's got no power and he's got no distance. And his wrestling is awesome, but he can't hold you down. And his cardio's poor.
Yeah.
So he can't keep chain wrestling the whole fight. He's got a lot of problems on his hands. Now, the UFC's done him a favor because they like DC and because they are tired of hearing gobble, gobble, gobble. They've given him at least a winnable fight here in Arroyo. Actually, it's a short notice replacement. Duran Winn was supposed to take on Antonio Braga Nito. Same
Which
thing
that
applies.
was this is a harder fight that they gave him in the follow.
This is a harder fight because Braga
That was
Nito
the
is,
layup that they had given him.
He's Frankenstein. He's got no mobility. You know, he just walks right in. And he's a jiu-jitsu guy with... You're not going to go and take down Duran Winn early, especially. Gerald Mearshart had to work him to get him down. Yeah, Nito wasn't going to do that. Antonio Arroyo, he's a bit of a left field guy because I thought he was a good grappler, right? When I seen him on Contender Series, it seemed like he had okay grappling with decent enough striking. When he took on Andre Muniz, I thought his grappling might be good enough to try to keep this fight into his element, which is be the better striker. Andre Muniz is not a very good striker. Keep the strike. He had no ability to keep it where he wanted it. Muniz just took him down at will. Duran Winn will take him down at will. Of course, the problem is if Duran Winn takes him down at will and doesn't do anything with it, which he generally doesn't, then Arroyo's just going to get back up. And then when the fight is up, then he's just going to beat him to the punch. Now, theoretically speaking, Darren Stewart and Gerald Mearshart are both better than Antonio Arroyo. It's how he looked against them, which was like absolutely abysmal. So now he's an underdog. First time ever they're going to give you some underdog play on Duran Winn. And it's like, do you take it? Like, do you take it on the basis of like everybody in AKA is telling you there's something there? Or do you just pass on the basis of like, I've seen it?
Who's even at AKA right now?
Yeah, that's a good point. Nobody. So for that reason, I'm going to have to say, you know what? I always say it's either I'm going to take the favorite or I'm going to take the underdog or it's a dog or pass. And then the last option, of course, is a flat pass. And I haven't even taken one yet, but this is my flat pass. I honestly think Duran Winn could beat Antonio Arroyo, but I can't back him anymore. I can't put my hard-earned money on this guy anymore. So that's a pass. And Arroyo, I'd love to fade Duran Winn. Why not? But it's like, is he the guy? Is he the guy, or am I going to walk into a trap? So hit me on a flat pass on that fight.
Yeah, and fair enough. Well, plenty of books for your parlays that you throw out every week. Plenty of books won't even let you put more than like 12.
Yeah, not when you're going to be on it.
They won't even let you put 12 fights on a parlay at lots of places.
Hit me with the fight starts round 3 real quick. If Matt Best has got it open.
Prop bet Matt.
Yeah, Duran Winn, Antonio Arroyo.
We're giving it a scroll. Fight starts round 3.
If it's got an available line. It might not.
Oh, there we go. Minus 155. Fight starts round 3.
Well, it's going to start round 3, but is minus 155 the best price tag? Not bad price tag, really.
Yeah,
you know what? That's better.
I don't
That's
mind
better
that.
than betting minus 155. What's his line straight up?
Same.
He's right. I would much rather take fight starts round 3 than betting Antonio Arroyo. And with Duran Winn, it's like, fool me once.
You know what? I like
fool
that.
me twice. Why am I going to let this guy fool me
Fight starts
3
round 3. I
times?
really like that because
Yeah.
the biggest concern with Winn is that he's going to get gassed. He seems pretty durable. He seems like he can take it. The issue is maybe he gets finished in round 3 because he's super tired from chasing these takedowns.
And if he does win, it's going to be a decision. That's how he fights. He's a
Yeah.
decision machine. If he wins, he's going to win a decision. If he loses, he's either going to lose a decision or lose in the 3rd round. So fight starts round 3, covers you both sides.
And he doesn't really have a neck because he's so short. So he's not. I don't think he's going to get choked out.
Yeah,
in these
fair
spots
enough.
either. And his arms are also stumpy and like he can't really get any leverage on that shit.
Well, he's built like a little tree stump. That's for damn sure.
100%. All right, we got Draco Rodriguez taking on Ayman Zahabi. Draco Rodriguez is a minus 190 favorite. Zahabi can be had for plus 165. Rodriguez seems to be on the regional scene and in his Contender Series fight, a bit of a submission specialist. Zahabi, I mean, it has not been a great run for him in the UFC. Obviously, the last 2 times out. The last one, off the top of my head, was I watched his most recent fight, which was
Vince Morales.
him versus Vince Morales, and we've seen where Vince Morales is in comparison to the rest of the people at the 135-pound weight division, and I mean, he did not look great in that spot. Morales.
No. I got things to say about this
Morales
guy.
really pushed up on him. Now, Draco Rodriguez, it's tough finding tape on him for the most part. Watch the Contender Series fights.
King of the Cage makes you pay to watch the replays.
I think you gotta pick Draco here. I don't love jumping on these Contender Series guys as favorites in their debut, but I think the Zahabi, I think, is more of like a trainer at this point in his career. I don't know how committed he is to the fight game. They're doing stuff at TriStar still. They don't have the same bodies rolling through there that they used to. I'm sure during COVID times, it's only the local guys that would be even training at the gym right now. I looked through his Instagram. I creeped through his Instagram a little bit. Good stuff. It's all family stuff and all of that. Didn't see very much of, Eamon's in the gym putting in the grind. I'll pick Draco here. Do you think Draco gets the sub? Like, where are you going with this one anyway?
No on the submission. I think if anything, he's able to maybe knock him out late or preferably pick up that decision. But see, what you got to realize about Draco is when Draco originally signed with the UFC 2 years ago, when King of the Cage kiboshed it, one of the big reasons why Terry Trebelock was like, I'm not letting this guy go with UFC. He's like, he has no jiu-jitsu. He's a white belt. Eamon Zahabi is a black belt. So if this fight hits the ground, it figures to be in Eamon Zahabi's corner. When we have seen Draco against Tony Gravely, for example, it's like he's not grappling with Tony Gravely. He's getting taken down routinely, out-grappled routinely. So does he win the fight? Good possibility. Does he submit Eamon Zahabi? No, I don't think so. Maybe gets him out late with the strikes. Maybe takes a decision. Eamon Zahabi's got a weird story, right? He was at once supposed to be one of the greatest Canadian prospects of all times. Maybe the next GSP.
I remember seeing him.
He is the youngest brother. I'll get to that. That's a great
Slam
story.
one.
That's a great story. I'm getting to that. He is the younger brother of famed trainer to the stars, Faraz Zahabi, who, if you had never heard the name GSP before, you would have never heard the name of Faraz Zahabi. He made him. But this is the younger brother. And the story that we kept hearing in the walls at Fight Network was that Eamon Zahabi, in a training session anyways, had completely killed Yves Jambouin, Nick Denis, and Miguel Torres in like one after another, bang, bang, bang. Now, people that have been tuning into this, there are a lot of golf fans from Pat's show, a lot of guys that started watching fights a few years ago. Nick Denis fought in the UFC, he was a good striker. He was so smart, he realized like getting hit in the head for a living wasn't a good idea, so he bailed pretty early. Yves Jambouin was an early TKO specialist. He fought in the WEC, did make it to the UFC as well. Miguel Torres is the former WEC champ. These guys were all guys. They were all good bodies. Eamon was supposed to be something. So he takes 2 amateur fights. One of them, he fought a friend of mine, Derek Charbonneau, wins the fight over Charbonneau, right? Rear naked choke, submits him, no big deal. Then you and I
remember Charbonneau.
Yeah, of course.
Robin fought Charbonneau.
Robin fought Charbonneau. On this card, Slam 1. We loaded up a van, headed down to Quebec. Wasn't even Montreal. It was a greasy part of Quebec, wasn't it?
I mean, it was outside of Montreal.
It was Mont-Saint-Hilaire. So we load up this van and we head down there. And it's called Slam 1, but what it is free win for TriStar guys, right?
Well, we're going to find fighters that haven't won a fight to take on TriStar fighters to pump these records. That's basically what was happening.
It's headlined by Alex Garcia, who then went on to the UFC. The co-headliner was Olivier Aubé-Mercier, who then went to the UFC. Eamon Zahabi was third fight down. It also Mario Pereira never made it anywhere. Ryan Hall was on the card, who then went to the UFC. Mandel Nalo was on the card, who is now a standout in Bellator. And Robin Black was on the card against Derek Charbonneau. So we've seen Eamon. Eamon goes in and takes on a guy by the name of Kyle Vivian,
who I had seen earlier in the day smoking cigs. Outside of the hotel. The guy's 0-8. Great duster on his Tapology profile.
Oh yeah, he's got a good profile picture.
I mean, he was there to do a job, and he did the job well.
He's smoking cigs. He lasts a minute 28 seconds. He actually also fought Sergio Pettis in Alberta, Manitoba, I think.
No, you go through his record. It's just like
he doesn't even fucking fight anybody.
Yeah. If you give him like $5,000, he's game.
So he wins that. And I remember we watched it and we all had a laugh. Remember I spilled a beer on Rory McDonald's buddy? That's a story for another day. But anyways, we have a great time. We go. Won't get into the details of that night. But it was just like a cool little win for Eamon. But then his next fight, he fought Philip Deschambault, who's 4-6, whatever. It's only his second fight. And then his next fight, he fought Wesley Bowman, making his debut. Scott Farhat, 7-8. Jeremy DiChiara, who had a very ballooned up 2-0 record. And he's fighting like once a year. But we had heard about this guy all the way back in 2012, killing 3 UFC veterans in the same half hour at the gym in TriStar. Why is it that he keeps fighting losing record guys and like once a year? Beats nobody. Apparently his brother knew. This guy's not ready. And to the effect of Derek Charbonneau, because we'll bring him back one more time, they tried to book a pro fight with Derek Charbonneau after, and you can see Tapology listed as canceled bout. Charbonneau backed off. Why would you want to fight this guy again? You fought him as an amateur. He never won. Derek Charbonneau was like 0-8 as an amateur and 0-1 as a pro. Why are you trying to fight this guy as a pro? So
Was
Charbonneau
Robin his only pro fight?
his only pro fight, and yet Zahabi tries to fight him after Robin had already fought him. Why is that the fight that you're looking for? But
Pad the record.
Faraz did not want to test this kid. Never wanted to test this kid.
his
Not
brother.
once. It's his brother. So he just lets the kid mature a little too long, right? Now from 2012 to his debut in 2017, he spent 5 years on the regional scene. He's the younger brother of Faraz. You know, the coach to George? He could have had a fight at any point, but they waited. Now he gets Reginaldo Vieira, who technically won the Ultimate Fighter Brazil.
What a weak season.
And he lost and actually got back in on injury replacement in a very weak season. And I remember he was training in a kitchen, like there's a fridge in the middle of the training room. It was like really low budget shit. And he looks remarkably good against Eamon Zahabi. Eamon Zahabi wins a decision. The fight's in Halifax. He's obviously going to get the Canadian rub. And he fought the worst possible guy they could have gotten him. And yet almost lost. The Ricardo Ramos fight, he gets taken out in the first round, out-grappled. The second round, Ramos gasses. And Eamon's actually starting to pick up the pace. And he's starting to beat him. And it goes into the third round. I got it 1-1. And I got Eamon coming on. And he doesn't look bad. He doesn't look great, but he doesn't look bad. It's a double spinning back elbow. He throws the first one. It misses by a mile. And you see him set up for the second one. And Eamon doesn't read it. He runs straight forward into it. Gets knocked out. You give him a pass because he was starting to come on. And was a spinning guy. You give him a pass. The Vince Morales fight is inexcusable. You've now lost to a guy that's got, he's a generalist. He's not a great wrestler. He's not a great striker. He doesn't do anything. Eamon Zahabi landed 28 significant strikes. He was gun shy. He didn't throw shit. He's 33 years old. He's one of the head trainers at TriStar MMA. He collects a paycheck from your gym fees. He collects a paycheck from doing personal lessons. He's 33 years old. He just had a baby. He's not in it to win it. Now, Draco's 24. This is it. This is it, baby. Let's go. I just want a contract in Contender Series. I really want this. And I will admit, there is a problem where Zahabi's got so much experience in the gym.
And probably just know-how and knowledge. And
I've sparred with kids like this 100 times, 1,000 times over. You know how many 24-year-olds knock on the door and they want some rounds? I'm a BJJ black belt. This kid's no better than a purple belt. Draco likes to over-engage in the grappling, which gets him away against bum opponents, but is not going to serve him well against somebody who's going to mind his P's and Q's, as we keep saying. So Zahabi would be considered a live underdog, but I've listed so many other live underdogs: the Pandy Kianzas, the Alex Moronos, the Jillian Robertsons, the Marcin Tyburas, the Rob Fonts. There's a lot of live underdogs on this card. Zahabi, I'm not going to go
what's
with.
the overpay on this one? Prop bet, Matt. Because it sounds if you don't think that the submission's even there.
No, yeah, I would say either Draco puts it on him late with his hands. Draco's very wild with his hands, but he does have some legitimate. But you're right, because Draco hasn't knocked anybody out in 2 years, and it was a 1-0 opponent. So yeah, I liked some overs on this fight too.
Over 1.5 minus 390. Over 2.5 minus 225.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't want the overs. You do not want unders on this fight.
They're
Sorry,
wise
over,
to it.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, we got Tafon and Nchukwi taking on Jamie Pickett. Tafon the Don is minus 300 favorite. Pickett plus 250. Tafon looks like a real problem moving forward. For
Could
some
potentially
people.
be.
This guy is super jacked. Rewatched his William Knight fight, and this is at 185 too. So
Yeah, that's a
he's a little
cruiserweight.
bit short. Obviously for 205, he hasn't had any problems. He's 4-0. He's really marched everybody down. But yeah, it looks like the hips are super strong. Like he's not easy to take down. William Knight is trying to do that in that spot, and they end up against the cage, and he's just unloading hellacious elbows and making him really pay for trying to take him down. And then on the Contender Series, I forget the name of the guy that he ended up fighting there. There was like one spot maybe in round one.
Rest in peace.
The guy that he took on didn't really, that was a tough spot. He was,
No shit.
in terms of level of skill that we're talking about here, he was a fish out of water. He did land one strike that I thought maybe startled Tafon a little bit. Jamie Pickett, on the other hand, he's been on the Contender Series multiple times. He got his contract on his second time around.
Third time
around.
No, his third time's the charm.
And that was just basically barging forward and clipping his opponent there. What was his name?
Jonathan Patti.
Yeah, Jonathan Patti.
It was a sweet combo, man. It was like 30 punch
He just
combo.
kind of barged forward like this, though. Just throwing
It was
bombs.
wild. It was wild for sure.
You do that against Tafon, you're taking
Probably get KO'd.
You're taking a canvas.
Yeah, I
snap.
agree.
I think this guy is going to be something. I think he's 4-0. There's a lot of skills to be developed here. Training at Team Lloyd Irvin. I don't know what his ground game is like, because it doesn't seem like anybody's able to take him down. The striking super crisp. I mean, onwards and upwards for Tafon the Don here. Minus 300. It seems like a lot. Obviously, they're not. You got to pay to play. But I like this kid. I think we've got a legitimate prospect on our hands. What about you?
Yeah, that's the impression that I get as well, is that he seems like a legitimate prospect. He's only 26 years old. He's young in his career, but he's making a ton of improvements. He's 13-1, I want to say, in Muay Thai. And like, you look at some of the replays, like he's a high-level striker, right? One of these guys that comes into MMA, puts on small gloves, and you better not mess around, because he's got great setups to his strikes. He's got great setups to his counters. One thing I don't like about him is that he doesn't throw a ton of output. You've seen in the Montalvo fight, Montalvo was way outmatched, but like, he's beating him to the punch. And like, it actually ends up being a 55. He outstrikes him 55-44. The thing you don't see is that 44th strike absolutely kills
The head
him.
kick, absolutely just rest in peace.
He's out the whole way to the ground. And I remember it was like 8.5 minutes after the KO, and then they were just like, the producer, obviously we've worked a lot of TV, so you would know how it would be. The producer was like, all right, camera 3, stop going to him. Stop going to him. Cut from that.
Yeah, let's pretend that didn't happen.
There's a good possibility he's dead. Certainly his brain's swelling. Maybe we should err on the side of caution and stop showing this guy. Thankfully, Montalvo's okay. But it was like, that's what's going to happen when you put a low-level guy on with somebody who's got this kind of striking. The Teflon Tafon, the Don. He looks like he's okay. Looks like he's making some improvements. Now, one thing with the Lloyd Irvin camp is Lloyd Irvin is grappling. If you know Lloyd Irvin, not the piece of shit side of Lloyd Irvin, but the actual jiu-jitsu side of him, it's like, the guy like made Keenan Cornelius. He had a house for just high-level BJJ black belts, and all you do is train. And like, this guy's just technically, he's on another level. He's very, very wise. Tafon's a striker. He's not a grappler. Linking him up with someone like Team Lloyd Irvin, I think that's putting in the other skills to his game. And to that point, his debut against Alex Myers, you can watch the fight. Alex Myers realizes, I don't want to strike with this guy, so just attempts to get him down. He stuffed 7 takedowns against Alex Myers, right? Stuffs them all. Grappling looked okay.
He's thick.
Next fight against A-Team McCowan, guy doesn't get the memo. Doesn't try to take him down. Bad idea. Gets knocked down. Then we get William Knight. Well, William Knight did get the memo, and he tries to get him down. And you see this guy, it's like he reverses and just like looks fairly smooth on the ground. And he's fighting at a catch weight of 220. And he doesn't overly look out of place, but he's not the biggest guy.
No.
Him at 205, perfect. Him now at 185 pounds, I'm excited about that, because this is not Dalcha.
Yeah. Him and
At
Dalcha
185.
both weighing in at 185. Like,
This is a big boy.
these
coming
boys
down
are going to be
185.
putting on the show at the weigh-ins. These guys are going to be jacked.
I agree. And I think that he's the legitimate prospect, because he's only 26. He's 9 years younger than Dalcha. He's
100%.
putting all the skills together. He's got a legitimate striking acumen, right? You add the grappling skills into all that, and it makes this guy a real big threat. Now, you got to move him along the slow way. And so with Jamie Pickett, and it's no offense to Jamie Pickett, but he was 0-2 in Contender Series fights. This is technically a regional show. You're trying to get a contract. And he's unable to do so. His first time around, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt, is Charles Byrd. But Charles Byrd got a UFC contract and then fanned out. Couldn't cut it. Got released from the promotion. And he gets submitted in the first round. His grappling leaves something to be desired. Goes back to the regional scene, beats some low-level guys, comes back against Puliano Soriano. A little bit better, very green. Loses a 30-27. Lost every round. And then that fight with Jonathan Patty looked good in the first round. The second round, he puts his 20-punch combo on him. The difference I find is that he looked a little bit wild with the striking. He's never been knocked out. So it's one thing to say, geez, our boy Tafon's going to knock him out. Never been knocked out. And when you talk about these guys with big height and big reach, Pickett's got an 80-inch reach on him. Actually got a 3-inch reach advantage, I'm pretty sure, over Tayfon. So
Fair.
it's interesting. But he's too wild. He's too wild. He's too open.
He'll
If you
eat the
try to
shots.
throw a 20-punch combination or a 30-punch combination, you allow yourself to open up, you're going to get knocked out. Tayfon seems to hurt you and take his time and wait, take you out, right? That's high-level striking. Pickett can wrestle a little bit. He can strike a little bit. He's got decent cardio. I think he's going to push it. Tayfon, we don't know what he's going to be like later in rounds. So push him into later rounds. And the one takeaway from Contender Series, if I'm Team Pickett, I really like this. He doesn't throw a ton. What he does throw is murderous. But he doesn't throw a ton. Beat him to the punch. Work him. And slowly wins those rounds. But I agree. I think when you got a legitimate prospect, he's just going to get better and better. Every time he's going to make improvements. He's 26. So what you saw against Will Knight, you didn't see against Montalvo. What you saw against Montalvo, you're not going to see here. You know, like there's going to be a steady arc of improvement. But minus 300 gives you the idea that he's already refined and he's still got some ways to go. I do not like this price tag. This is not my lock of the week, but I do think he gets the victory.
All right, fair enough. We got we got the rematch. Fight was supposed to take place. Was it last week or the other?
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Jimmy the Brick Flick. Tell him the Brick sent you. He's taking on Cody Durden. You had Durden last time out. I believe there was some sort of medical.
It was an infected eye.
Infected
Pink
eye. Okay, for Durden.
It did look fucked up, but I
Pulled
mean,
him out. He was wearing sunglasses on the scales. So.
yeah, dead giveaway.
Minus 150, plus 130. Has anything changed in your mind here, or do you still like Durden?
You know what? I'm actually kind of thinking I'm going to go towards Flick. I know. So, you know me, my brain just thinks too much. But with Cody Durden, so Cody Durden never fought at 125. He had fought catchweights of 127, 128, and fought largely.
No, he fought Scoggins at 125, I believe.
Yeah, and he got worked in that fight and submitted, correct? Let me just bring it up really quick. So he made 125 one time against the younger Scoggins, Jared.
Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, actually, it was a decision. It's listed at 125 and was for the flyweight championship, despite it being a flyweight title fight. It was only 3 rounds. So I don't know. I had never really seen him make 125. What I have seen him make is take catchweights and fight at 135. When he was making 125 for the last fight against Flick, he went on Twitter to pull a Mike Perry, complain, oh, it's so difficult. Diego Lima's coach, because at ATT Atlanta, his coach Diego Lima comes on, well, we'll cut off a leg to make weight. Cody's going to make weight. He's going to make weight. He's going to make weight. And he had said, I've never made 126 in my life. That's what he said. Fair, whatever. Does make the weight. Does show up to the dance. Got an eye infection. Now they cancel it. Now you rebook it 2 weeks. Now he's going to make the weight again. So, like, on one hand, he was complaining about the weight cut. He's got to make it all over again. But here's my issue with him. Everybody that's breaking down Cody Durden, you got to talk about the Chris Gutierrez fight. Everyone's got this idea like he dominated Chris Gutierrez in the first round. Like, no, he backpacked him, and that's it. And Chris Gutierrez was way too comfortable with just sitting there, hoping the ref would stand him up. Only no ref in their right mind would ever stand up a fight when the guy's on the other guy's back. So he doesn't get stood up. And then in the second and third round, Durden's tired. His striking is abysmal. You know something, right? He's a wrestler, right? Guy wrestled collegiately. He was a good high school wrestler. That's what they bill him at. He went 2 of 13 in takedown attempts against Chris Gutierrez, a non-wrestler. His wrestling's not all that good. His cardio's not all that good. How's he going to beat Jimmy Flick? Knock him out. Jimmy Flick been knocked out 4 times in 5 pro losses. Like, chin check this guy. But I got a bad feeling that Jimmy Flick either A, takes him down and chokes him out, B, gets taken down and chokes him out, or C, they both get tired in Jimmy Flick's game. Like, his cardio has seemingly looked a little bit better his last 3 fights. It's like you got to knock him out earlier. He's just going to keep tying submission attempts together. So the last time we broke down the fight, I thought Cody Durden, live dog. He got the better wrestling, keep the fight standing. He's got the better striking. He's got the more punching power. His ground and pound's a lot better. Hurt Flick, get at him. But honestly, I just had like a gut change. And again, I got Flick on Facebook. Probably shouldn't. You don't want to like have like a personal feeling towards the guy. But like the fight gets canceled with Cody Durden. And at first he's like, no reason homeboy's wearing sunglasses at the weigh-ins. He got pink eyes. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's whatever, got my show money. He's like, really want to fight, but, rebook it to the next card. Like, he's just cool with it. And then the video he posts that night, he's crying, And it's like, that's the emotion a fighter goes through. It's like, you just got paid $12,000 to not do shit. and
But
they'll
you've been
rebook
putting
it.
in all this time training, getting ready
Yeah.
for the biggest moment of your career.
And
that's what we kind of forget some
Jimmy
of the times
Flick
here when
is-
we'll shit on fighters and stuff
you're
like
right,
that.
man.
But it's just
You're
like
right.
this is these guys' Super Bowl.
And I respect
Just
him.
because it's like deep
Yeah.
down the prelims, it may be like, oh well, this is a throwaway fight or something like that. But just like this is these guys' Super Bowl. This is the biggest moment of their career.
I didn't mean to say it like he was crying like he's a bitch. I meant to say it like he's crying like that's how much it meant to him. Like he's emotional. Because everybody cries, right? It really meant a lot to him to make his UFC debut. I got a full-time job. I took a short notice fight for the LFA flyweight title. And shit, I sprung a quick upset and got a quick submission. Then, 2 weeks later, they offered me a short notice contender series fight. He's replacing JP Buys on short notice. He comes out there and puts on a fucking career performance, man. His calf kicks look legit. His striking looked improved because he's a bad striker. But it looked a lot better. His wrestling looked unbelievable. And he had the most submission attempts in contender series history and finally stuck him with the last one. Arms never burnt out. Kept just chain submissions. A lot to like there. Now you take a fight with Cody Durden in the UFC, like, he's on a wave of momentum right now, and he's feeling good, and he has a full-time job, which I think he's taking some... Cody Durden actually left his full-time job as well. You got two guys, this means the world to them. They're the second fight on the UFC card. They're finally starting to get paid. They've left their full-time jobs. This means everything to them. But with Jimmy Flick, it's like he's had a full career of fighting just anybody he could. 13 of 15 wins by submission. His submission game looks tight. BJJ black belt. His striking has always been his weakness, but it looks like he's made a long ways. And it seems like I really thought Cody Durden was going to be a lot physically stronger than him the last time we broke down this fight. I don't know that I feel that way. So honestly...
You got to wonder with Durden, too, if he has an eye infection. If he has pink eye 2 weeks ago...
Whose ass is he
mixing-
eating?
Yeah, who?
Who? Who? Well, you know?
No, but I mean, like...
Were they a
are
BJJ
guys-
black
are
belt?
guys
Because Jimmy
lining-
Flick is.
Are guys lining up to train with him in the room right now? They don't want to get fucking pink eye either right before the Christmas holidays, so maybe he hasn't done all that much in the last couple of weeks.
It's certainly possible. I
don't know if fighters are afraid of pink eye. But
I just saw with Durden, it's like he gassed out against Gutierrez, but he's on short notice and he's working a full-time job. So now his last fight, full camp, no job, focus on the weight cut. This is his chance. He's a live dog. He's plus 130, relatively the same as last time they were priced.
Yeah.
He's a live dog. But then thinking about, fuck, man, he's got to drop that weight again. And I don't know. I just think that's a lot of stress on you. You know, I think it's a 50-50 fight. 50-50 fight, you take dog or pass. But the variables throwing in, at least in my brain just won't stop. It's telling me, like, there's so many underdogs that we talked about that have a legitimate chance. And Durden has a legitimate chance, but he's not one of the ones I like. So I'm going to hit a favorite or pass. It's going to be Jimmy Flick or a straight pass for me.
all right, and finally we've got Rick Glenn taking on Carlton minus. Rick Glenn minus 325 favorite, minus can be had 4 plus 265. Minus took on Semmelsberger. Watch that fight.
Oh, man.
And I wasn't all that impressed. Like he
faints a lot.
he faints a lot. His entries looked pretty wild, and the problem here is that they're paying. You got to pay the piper to bet Rick Glenn, and Rick
That's the
Glenn is a 145-pounder coming up here, and his career is just kind of like you don't know which Rick Glenn is. It going to be the guy who showed up and absolutely put the hurt on Gavin Tucker that one day.
You're going to bring that up.
The absolute
Yeah.
fucking tyrant that he showed up and just absolute what we thought was a game-changing beating. I mean, props to Gavin Tucker coming out there. And
It turns out he's tougher than John Wayne's boot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy really took a beating in that fight and looks good. If they were to rebook
I'm
that
worried
fight,
about
I would
Rick.
bet Gavin
I got to
Tucker.
see Rick Glenn on a scale here at 155.
Wow. What
He's
do you
given up
wanna see?
He's given up like 3.5 inches of reach. I think technique, skill, everything is Rick Glenn's corner. This guy's a former champion on not the UFC,
World Series
but
of Fighting, yeah.
World Series of Fighting.
Beat Georgia
High-level
Carahon, yeah.
promotions. This guy's a former champion. The skills are all there. He should have massive advantages besides size. He's given up like 3.5 inches of reach here. But more or less anywhere this fight goes, I gotta go with Rick Glenn. But It's quarantine time. I put on like 25 fucking pounds. I got a
Have you actually?
New Year's
Is that why you
resolution.
grew a beard?
Oh yeah, of course.
I didn't even notice, man.
100%.
I feel like I've lost weight, if anything.
No, I was doing
So I'm
actually pretty
drinking
good in the
back.
summer.
This beer is tasty, by the way.
Football
Big wave
season.
golden ale?
Football season. It tends to happen. The days are long, and then you end up buying pizza on the way home because it's late
sounds
at night.
tasty
and
right about
these
now.
things happen, but. Yeah, that's one of the New Year's resolutions. Get some shit
Keto?
tight. Probably.
Oh, you will?
That's
Go back
the
to the keto?
That's the Cheeto keto code, basically.
Wow,
yeah.
you're the keto master,
It
dude.
works.
I never heard of that shit before. You put that shit on the map. They should be paying you, if anything.
I don't know if there's somebody individually to pay for that, but
I don't even know who invented it, to be honest.
If you want, yeah, if you want to pay us money, we're looking for sponsors here. But yeah, Rick Glenn clearly the pick. I'm not impressed by what I saw from Carlton minus. Semmelsberger made it look pretty easy in pretty much all the exchanges that I saw in that fight. The only question is, 145-pounder moving up to 155. Is it because he hasn't been training all that much? I haven't seen anything from Rick Glenn. So Glenn's the pick. Wish I was more confident in where he's at right now, though. That's my major issue here.
Yeah, dude, honestly, you pretty much stole the words right from me. Is that what has Rick Glenn been up to? Is he trustworthy? Can you trust this guy? And that's all the big question here. Because for what he's got, Rick Glenn's got some legitimate talent. He's a good wrestler, underrated wrestler. His grappling is legit. His striking is like long man striking. He puts it on you. But if he thinks he has you hurt, his combos are legit, and he just keeps putting on that pressure. Obviously, you could talk about the Gavin Tucker fight all day long, but it's a career body of work considering the guy's got 28 pro fights. And, he's had 2.5 years off. He hasn't fought in 2.5 years. He's still only 31 years old. The skills are there. The question is that, like, where's the guy at, right? Because notoriously, he's fighting in the UFC, and he works at Costco. That was his thing. He's working at Costco full-time, fighting in the UFC. Beat Georgi Karahanyan for the World Series of Fighting featherweight title. Lost to Lance Palmer. No big deal. It's fucking Lance Palmer, the $1 Million Man. But it's like he was fighting at a high echelon, right? He comes to the UFC, he's supposed to be decent. Fought some decent guys, gave an okay count of himself, but he's got skills everywhere. It's that, like, what has he done since? And that's the problem. So he loses to Kevin Aguilar, 30-27. He loses all 3 rounds to Kevin Aguilar. He gets beat to the punch. He doesn't particularly look good in that fight. Since then, he's taken 2.5 years off. That's red flag number 1. 2.5 year long layoff, okay? Red flag number 2, and you mentioned it, he's moving from 145 to 155. Red flag number 3, he left Team Alpha Male, which is where he was training during his UFC tenure, to move back home to Iowa, where he's not training at a high level. Red flag number 4, just had a baby. So all of these different things move it. Oh, yeah, sorry. I missed the biggest one of them all. Red flag number 5, it wasn't like the baby that he just had was the reason he's been off 2.5 years. It wasn't like it was the loss. He got a bad hip problem, and he's had surgery on his hip. And he says he was just, like, run down, tired, injured.
Sure, but when you're paying minus 325, there's too many red flags.
And listen, he is the clear favorite in this fight, because we'll talk about Carlton minus in a minute. But it's just like, he's the clear favorite, but he's got those 5 major red flags. But red flag number, I think it was 3. No, it was red flag number 2, which is him moving up to 155. See, that's compounded because Carlton minus is moving down from 170. And Carlton minus also fought in the Alaska FC regionals at 185. Not a big middleweight, but an okay-sized welterweight, and figures to be probably a large lightweight.
Yeah.
Taking on a guy in Rick Glenn who's going to be a small lightweight, who's been off for 2.5 years, who just had a baby, who left a mega gym to go back home to Iowa, who's coming off a very decisive loss to Kevin Aguilar 2.5 years ago. It's red flag central. It's more red flags than an amusement park. So do you bet him at 325? Like, I want to bet him. He's the favorite. He's decisively the favorite. You got a guy here in Carlton minus whose record effectively stands 10-2. See, he's 10 wins on the Alaska FC regional and 0-2 when fighting outside of Alaska. He still trains in Alaska at Avalanche MMA, or Avalanche Wrestling, I think it is. Is Anchorage the capital?
Yeah.
Biggest city in Alaska. But it's like realistically, it's like who's he training with? Is he getting better? Is his weight cut gonna zap him? You got to wait until you see this guy in the weigh-ins as well. If you told me who's a better striker, I'd say this kid feints too much. He does a lot of feinting. He switches stances a lot. Rick Glenn's a better striker. Who's the better wrestler? Honestly, Rick Glenn's got underrated wrestling. He's definitely the better wrestler. Who's got the better grappling? Oh, it's Rick Glenn. Who's got the better cardio? Well, Rick Glenn doesn't gas. So, like, he's got the advantages in all the areas. So it's like, well, why are we not banking on him at minus 325? The 5 red size, layoff,
Giving
injury.
up 3.5 inches of reach, I believe. I think it's like 74. I'm doing it all off memory, but 74-inch reach versus 70.5.
And I just feel like you got a guy who is not showing you anything in Carlton minus, right? No. And he's just a dog. He's just an underdog on the card with a lot of better underdogs. It just comes down to pricing. That's all. That's all. And you know what? It's not the bookie's fault. The bookie opens it. Matt Best will be able to correct me on this, but the bookie opens it like 260 Rick Glenn or something. It's the people realizing, like, dude, Rick Glenn's way better than this guy everywhere. They bank on it. They run the price. So now we can sit here and say there's too much money on Rick Glenn, but then in the same breath, we just told you he's better everywhere.
Yeah.
So why would he not win the fight? And if he's going to win the fight, who cares what you're paying? But it's like, shit, I'd really like to see a round or two in him before I fully... And listen, we got a guy that just lost to Matthew Semmelsberger. And you rewatch that fight. It's like, he definitely lost. He probably lost all 3 rounds.
It wasn't particularly close. He
No,
got
no.
dominated pretty much pillar to post.
So, like, what could he possibly do against Rick Glenn? Nothing. So, like, why am I talking myself out of Glenn? Shouldn't Glenn be top bracket parlay piece? You know, he might end up being. But will I tweet out, son of a fucking bitch?
You like it.
Right
you like
afterwards?
it because you can rebuild after that if it's the first fight of the night, though.
You're right. You're right about that. You're right about that. If for some reason it lost,
Rick
it'd be
Glenn's
like,
gonna end
Glenn
up in your
Pickett.
top line. That's my prediction right now.
I like a lot of dogs on this card, and dogs won't be in that top line. So who are some of the safe favorites that should definitely win? Well, Rick Glenn should definitely win. You know, Tafon, I would think he should definitely win. Do I agree with the price tags? No, not really, but I do think they win. Who's a guaranteed win beyond that, man? You know, there's none. There's honestly none. I told everybody we'd get back on the win column because it's the last card of the year. I let my people down last week. But now I'm going to take them to the promised land, the land of milk and cookies, Paul. But it's like, ooh, this is a tough card to try to guarantee those promises. But, you know, Moses was like, fuck it, I'm going to get right across that sea. No one believed him, but he did it. And you know what? They didn't believe him when he said that the burning bush was on fire. But it was. And so...
you can see the beers are starting to kick in for Cody, giving
Maybe
us some religious prophecies and all that shit right now.
all I'm saying is, on the 17th day, Rick Glenn came back to the UFC. And, he does not... How did I forget this? He doesn't work at a Costco anymore because he left. He went back to Iowa. He's a plumber now, Paul. So I'll tell you what, it's like it takes more out of you to be a plumber than to stock shelves.
Have you been a plumber?
I got a buddy that's a plumber.
Have you worked at a
tough
Costco?
Work, man. I've been to a Costco many times.
I worked at a Costco.
You've worked everywhere.
Yeah, I had some years of my life
How
where
many
I just
different
kind
jobs do you think you've had? Odd job, Paul. Whew. If you had to guess, would it be like...
over 20.
That's a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
You've
I've been
had-
at this one for a while.
You know what? Considering you're 35, 34?
35.
You're 35, and you've been at this job technically for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So between 15 and 25,
That's where
you held down 20
that's where
different
all the
jobs.
magic happened.
Yeah,
That's
those
where
are
all.
the good old
I mean, my
days.
first job would have been like I helped like a general contractor up at my family's cottage.
The best is when you were
I was like
in New
I was
Zealand.
12 years old, getting cash underneath the table, like child labor, basically.
Child labor.
He paid me pretty well. He's a good guy.
Little known fact, the audience would know, Paul Shaughnessy is in the Tree Planting Hall of Fame. How many trees did you plant?
On the records,
On the records. That's not even off the...
I think it's
trees
like
under the table.
862,000.
862,000
But I worked for
trees Paul planted.
I'm
you
close.
guys, make sure to give him a thank you.
There's probably like another 70,000 trees that were planted elsewhere.
That's crazy.
Like for
man.
like different companies, little side projects and stuff like that. There's like another 70. So it's like if I went back, on the books based on like the one company that I did most of my work for,
Yeah.
862,000. So I'm in the Hall of Fame there. But yeah, if I went back for like a month, I don't know. I'm old now and broken. So if I went
Pierre.
back for a couple of months, I would be over $1 million.
I actually know one other tree planter, And he's now just wrapped up his 5th season, and I think he just hit over 500,000 trees. So to put things into perspective, Paul crushed ass at tree planting.
Yeah, I had a couple seasons that were really good. I was
You're in the Hall of Fame, bro. They don't just give away that
top
shit.
2, top 3 in the camp. Especially I think it was my 4th year. Just put on a goddamn clinic. Those are the glory days. All right, we've been going pretty long because there's 14 fights here. Brett Appley will drop a video for DraftKings Picks later on in the week. We'll, closer to weigh-ins, and we'll see. Certain fights are going to drop out. And,
I believe it.
I mean, we have 14 fights here. I was talking to producer Matt before. I'm like, we'll be lucky to have 12. I think I'm fully expecting at least 2 of these to drop out
I think
for
the
whatever
UFC
reason.
is
We're
as
in
well.
Vegas, and
Yeah.
that's just what has been happening here. In the new year, we're going to be back on Fight Island starting January 16th. So I don't know. Maybe we should go a different way about breaking down from a DraftKings perspective here. Maybe pick your 3 favorite guys.
My 3 favorite favorites, or just 3 favorite guys?
3
in
favorite
general?
DraftKings plays. Rather, because what usually
All right, I
happens
like Michelle
here-
Pereira,
What usually
8,300.
ends up happening here, Cody, is that we get to this point, and then you
Yeah.
basically just do an unabridged version of the entire breakdown, which people just sat through.
Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong about that. I am a rambling man. Everyone knows
No, we
this.
love it. I love it because you bail me out of a lot of situations.
I'm gonna say I like,
lean
but
on
Pereira's only $8,300. He's got high upside. He fights like a shit-eating wild man. But honestly, his ground game's his path to victory here, and so he could surprise you. He might be able to get a finish, but even if he doesn't, he's still gonna get 8,300 in a victory.
You probably want the winner of that fight either way.
Yeah, for like a value guy, honestly, maybe it's my hatred towards Anthony Pettis is really shining through. By the way, if anybody wants a box of those Anthony Pettis Wheaties, I gotta get them out of my sight. Yeah. 7,000. I mean, he's got a winnable upside. Does he knock out Pettis? No. Does he submit Pettis? No. He puts the pressure on him for 7,000. Not the worst price. Who do I really like? This is a tough week.
I know that I think the guy that
I like a lot of underdogs, to be honest with you. Like, who are your top money favorites that you like? Who are you spending up for?
the guy that I would be spending up for. I mean, I like Thompson in the main event. I actually quite like.
Yeah, but
Stephen Thompson.
he's $7,800, right? The 8,600 on Aldo is not quite paying up. 9,000 on Moraes? No, I'm not particularly interested in that. 9,200 on Pettis? Fuck no. 8,800 on Senor Eubanks? No way. Carl Robertson 9,300? Really? Like, that's a big price tag for Carl Robertson.
I guess the issue with Tafon is he's 9,400, and if Pickett's never been knocked out.
Yeah, and like Draco, same thing. Like he's 9,100, but like he's taking on Savvy and a veteran that's like good at eluding strikes and just kind of staying at bay. You know, Jimmy Flick versus Durden. Jimmy Flick's got a really high upside, but in the same breath, he's been knocked out 4 times in 5 losses. So Cody Durden at 7,500 could be an optimal type of play. Rick Glenn versus Carlton Minus, like Rick Glenn could put it on him. He should throw some strikes in the mix, but the 9,500 is blown way out of proportion. And Minus, we're not taking him. So it's like you're going to have a ton of money left on the table. And what you decide to do with that money is anybody's guess. But it looks like there's a lot of, I think
You're
there's
right,
a lot
though.
of
The
over
top
one
guys
and a
like
halves.
Anthony Pettis, we don't really like
No, I
9,200.
don't.
That's asking a lot. Roberson, like I'm scared that he could just get starched.
Yeah, and you got Draco and Tafon. I like both of them better than the last 2 guys we talked about. But it's the same thing. It's like
I think Tafon is the spend up guy for me. I know that James Pickett
he-
hasn't been knocked out, but like
he just bodied a guy
he
the
hasn't
last time
taken
out,
on
so.
Tafon. Tafon looks like the real deal, and we'll see where his career goes. But Tafon would be my favorite.
I agree with you.
high up guy. I like Stephen Thompson in the main event,
Which is a mid-range guy. And then for a cheap guy, yeah, I think you got a lot of options. I think Rob Font's a legitimate option. I think that...
I mean, Font has got to be chalk at 7,200 and a plus 125.
Morono 7,000 and Penny Kianzad 7,400. Penny's got less of a chance for finish. Pettis has got less of a chance for finish. At least with Rob Font, it's like maybe he chin checks him, but it's probably going to be decision. It's the fact that he's $7,200. Really cheap, right? I would say leave it in the hands of Brett Appley. We always give you a breakdown at the end of the card. I know a lot of people shit on it. Well, your DraftKings picks, you don't take as much time as your money line picks. Listen to Brett, man. Brett's legit.
there's-
Brett does the research. He knows what he's talking about. He's a guy that's won
He gets
more
deeper
tournaments
into
than
the
you'd want to know.
stats of each one of these individual fighters.
Yeah,
stuff
and
like that.
legitimately, he's like a guy that I would put my vote of confidence behind. Like, I have no trouble telling you, listen to this guy. When I think about the top DK players, like, I think he specializes more so in DraftKings, or not DraftKings, but just like fantasy MMA. I would say he's one of the guys. He's one of the guys. Listen to him for sure. As far as the money line picks, as you can say, we're all over the place. And I'm going to tighten this bitch up. We're going to tighten this bitch up. And by Friday or by Saturday, when we put out some parlays, it's like, let's hit a nice little festive season parlay ball.
Yeah. We get the kids, a Christmas miracle.
Wow, this card it would be a miracle because it is shit's row.
Yeah,
man.
there are
You know what I think?
landmines. Landmines are to be had everywhere. There's question marks on all of the. I mean, there's a lot of close pick'em types of fights. It's just a matter of finding the spots that you really love.
I would think there's a room. You might have Sean Shelby in it. You might have McMahon in it. You got Dana in it. It starts off with a. And then they're like,
God,
what the fuck, man? It's the last card of the year already. Oh, I'm surprised it ran through us. Who do you got about Rick Glenn? Motherfucker's still on the roster, dude. He hasn't fought in 2.5 years. Yeah, we got to give him a fight, though. We owe him a fight. Okay, put Rick Glenn. Who do we got to fight Rick Glenn? Oh, Carlton Minas. I don't even know who that is. Line him up. What else do we got? Cody Durden, Jimmy Flick. What? Didn't that fight already happen? No, it got canceled. Fuck, we owe them a fight, don't we? Yeah, we do. Okay, Jimmy Pickett. Dude, I did not give that guy the contract. No. But the second time, I didn't give him the contract. No, the third time, oh man, I did give him the contract. Him versus Tafon. Tafon's gonna roll, baby. What else do we got? Eamon Zahabi. Are you sure he's still on the roster? Like, this card is really, I owe you a fight. It's the end of the year. Contractually, I don't want to get sued. Here's a fight. 14 of them. Take your pick. So, listen, there's going to be a lot of spots.
So can't
Matchmaking's tight at the ace. Duran Winn. You sure we didn't cut that guy? No, DC called, begged 3 times. Oh, fuck, that's right. Isn't he only 5'6"? Cody thought he was 5'8". Motherfucker's only 5'6". Ah, shit.
That's like
We got
basically
exciting
the greatest breakdown of this card.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
good
there's
thing
a
I didn't
lot
go
of
through
fun
the-
fights. I'm going to enjoy
No,
watching
it's gonna be
all
fun
of
as
this.
hell. It's just like I want to let's bank some money. Let's make some holiday money for the gang. And it's just like if you put a gun in my hand, you're like, who are your top 3 most solid? Build that top 3 parlay right now. Who are your top 3? It's like, well, Thompson can't make the top 3. Aldo, it's like, oh fuck, man, he's seen better days, and I do think he's gonna win. Marlon Moraes, Rob Font. Like, no, Michelle Pereira. I would think I like Michelle Pereira. No, and that's exactly what it comes down to. He's a minus 125. He's on a lock, right? He's taking Chaos Williams, who's
All right.
and who is gonna talk about it? Guys normally lose and shit in your apple pie. Michelle Pereira's winning. He's winning. He's breakdancing some shit into your apple pie.
I trust your judgment, kid.
But I do like him. And then I mean, it's
All right,
it's
so-
murder's row. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it because that's what we do.
We're just about out of time. But before we go, hit them with the can't lose. Can't see how anybody on this Pogie Rob parlay could possibly not come through.
I'll tell you something.
Out of 14
There's a
fights.
no chance that these guys lose. Stephen Thompson, who's technically dog number 1. Jose Aldo. Michelle Pereira. Rob Font, dog number 2. Marcin Tybura, dog number 3. Jillian Robertson, dog number 4. Alex Morono, dog number 5. Penny Kianzad, dog number 6. Carl Roberson. Oh, man. If your book only takes 12 fights, pass on this. If you
On the Arroyo.
yeah, dude. If you have to take a fight, I'm gonna take Duran Winn and hope that Arroyo doesn't get back. You will though. Anyways, I think that's dog number 6. We're gonna go with Draco Rodriguez. We're gonna go with Tafon Nchukwi. We're gonna go with Jimmy Flick. And we're gonna round it out with Rick Glenn. I do like a lot of these overs. I'll hopefully tweet out something about that. Obviously,
Small
we talked
cage,
about some
though.
prop shit. It is small cage, yeah. And
I mean,
listen,
I felt real fortunate that I was feeling like a genius last week with the JDS versus Gunn over 1.5. The whole time I'm just like, this is exactly how I saw it playing out. The problem with heavyweight MMA is it takes one shot. And we got there.
shot.
We got there with 4 seconds. But like,
dude, I know.
he got clipped like at like 29. So if he just falls down and they don't need those cleanup shots, it gets real dicey.
Dude, it was
But, like,
technically
it was-
a jab, but he switched stance. It was the right hand, but he just like pops
Got him a
JDS
little bit
clean.
behind the
Oh
ear,
no,
but-
the elbow is right behind the head. But at the same time, it's like
He's
he was
standing. I understand to the back of the
turned.
head, but
He turned.
like,
JDS
yeah.
turned on his own. It was not a dirty strike. It
Yeah.
was not an illegal strike. It was. It wouldn't have been no contest or DQ worthy. It was like the guy's hurt and he turns.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Yeah, shots to the back of the head when you got them mounted totally understand that. But it's like when you're standing, you just got clipped, you turn your back, and somebody's already throwing a strike. Like, I don't know how you could
also,
even
if you're on the ground,
cry foul on that.
if you're on the ground, you give up your back. Why not just cover up your head and just leave the back of your head exposed? It's like, that's a coward's way out, dog. If this is the jungle, he would have smashed your head in with a rock by now. Like, fight to defend yourself, right? You give up your back, you leave that opening. JDS is on his way out. Clearly, over his career, we've seen he fought the best power punchers in the world and got folded. Now he's taking on a guy that's not exactly a known power puncher and getting folded. You know what? That one was just like try to recoup some of the money. But I was feeling like a genius after the Chase Hooper fight because I knew that fight was going over 1 round. It was going over 2 rounds, over 1.5, over 2.5, probably go to decision. And when the over 1.5 hit, the fight starts around 3 hit, the over 2.5 hit, and Hooper won. I was like, what a way to start the card. And then literally, pew, after that. So I think it was like 3-6-1 or something stupid because of the main event. Is what it is. The top bracket didn't lose, but the draw caused the top bracket on the parlay to be worth nothing. And then everything else lost, right? So not a great night.
I mean, it was
We'll
really,
get it
it was losing the point.
I know.
That cost you that top one.
And the last badge of honor that I could hang on myself was I could have been like, man, I told you Morono was going to fucking show up and do the dance and show you that Mexican heart of a warrior and that cast iron chin.
I mean, you were talking about that on the show.
I know. But then I cowered and put Figueiredo because it was like, it's an easy way to hedge. Problem is when the main event came, there was no money to hedge out. No. There was a let it roll. And the draw killed you. So, anyways, let's get it back this weekend. I got a whole bunch more things to say, but the 3 beers is really ran through me. I got to piss really bad. So,
fair enough.
Let's just call this one off.
All right, that is it for us this year. We'll be back in January. January 13th, I imagine. There will be a new episode of the Dogger Pass podcast. So, for producer Matt and Cody, I'm Paul. Paul Shaughnessy is saying goodbye and happy holidays.
MMA experience! Experience!